So on this week's episode of Masters of the Craft, you have another one of your friends, Steve Higgins. How do you know Steve?
I know Steve as part of a group of people in Los Angeles who I used to hang out with. We were all called rancheros because, and we're trying to figure out I think you're always a ranchero. So if you were a ranchero then, you were a ranchero, you're a ranchero now still. But the ranch doesn't exist. So the ranch was a ranch style house in North Hollywood in LA, and a lot of aspiring filmmakers and people of note came out of that space. So Steve lived at the ranch with his brother Dave and a few other people, and then people who hung out at the ranch were me. Paul Fee was another ranch guy. Judd Apatow was another ranch guy, so you might know those names. Steve, in addition to being a producer on Saturday Night Live, which he's done for 20-something years, I think, he also is the sidekick on The Tonight Show, on Jimmy Fallon's show. So you might be familiar with his face and persona.
What was it about having Steve on the show, and what do you think folks should be listening for, or that you were excited about from the interview with Steve?
Steve, the thing about Steve is that he not only is he very funny and a funny writer and a funny guy and just a nice, compelling guy to listen to, but I also thought that being a producer for Saturday Night Live and being at The Tonight Show, he has sort of a front row seat to a lot of creatives and how they work. A lot of writers come through SNL, a lot of young comics and actors and all those people come through. And so he sees these people come through sort of at the beginning of their sort of careers, or at least the beginning of their fame. And I thought he might have some insight into how to do that show and how people think, how he thinks about his work. And he has some interesting things to say about SNL in particular, and about how he thinks about writing that show and things they have to do on that show. I just thought, yeah, why not have a guy on who I like and who I've known for so long and see what he had to say. So we have several ranch people lined up, but he's sort of the first, I think, ranchero to be on the show.
All right. This week's episode is with Steve Higgins.
Hello, and welcome to You Are a Storyteller, Masters of the Craft, a conversational series with author and filmmaker Brian McDonald. In this episode, Brian is joined by writer, producer, actor, and comedian Steve Higgins, best known for his work as the announcer of The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, and as a writer and producer for Saturday Night Live. Steve shares his journey to becoming one of the most recognized voices in comedy and unpacks how being true to yourself, vulnerable, and kind is the key to true success.
I'm the luckiest guy in the world, job-wise, I feel like, with this job. But I don't feel like there's a luckier person.
Well, me, I think I'm the luckiest person alive with my job.
Yeah, well, what, you think so?
Yeah, I think I do. I think I'm the luckiest man alive. Well, I think I've won the lottery so many times over that it gets embarrassing to talk about.
That is true. You do have two jobs. One job is a career.
Right.
One job is an end goal for somebody. But you have two of those.
I have two of those end goals, and I married the love of my life. I got 4 great kids. I got a place to stay. You know what I mean? Everybody's knock wood healthy, so it's like, whoo.
Yeah. And I actually, one of my strong memories of you hanging out is when you said that if you could get a job working in New York, show business job, it'd be the greatest. Yeah.
No, my whole life I wanted, as long as I can remember, I wanted to do live TV in New York.
Really?
But I didn't think I'd ever be on SNL. I thought it'd be like because when you dream, you don't dream reality. You dream like, oh, I'm on the show for your show of shows, or
right,
that, like
whatever's around at your
drinking two plain and bagels and living the Jewish lifestyle of a writer.
This is interesting, actually, talking about your dreams of wanting to have a live television. I think I had some of those ideas myself, not quite the same, but some of them. And then later, when I found out about the live dramas that Pettichevsky and all those people used to write, I'm like, that's the life. Like being one of those. I would still like to be one of those guys.
No, and also like radio. I wish radio was
right. Oh yeah,
because then that would be like that was the dream. Radio.
Yeah.
It's like you could be anywhere at any time. You didn't have to ask anybody. You could do it the same day.
Yeah.
It's everything I wanted to do, oddly enough, all nexus, come together in Saturday Night Live.
Is that true?
Yeah, because you don't have to. It's like, as I tell hosts when they come in, it's like what you thought show business was before you were in show business.
Huh.
Or you think of an idea.
Yeah.
On Monday, you write it up, thing on Tuesday, you write up Tuesday night, Wednesday it gets picked. By Saturday, it's the set is there, the costumes, the wigs, the hair, the stuff that is so amazing. The beards are better than movie beards. The wigs are better than the costumes are. Everything is exquisite. And it's too good. Like when we switched to HD, the only thing we had to do was cut the lace on the wig a little tighter.
Really?
We were already too good. You know what I mean? We didn't need to be that good. Like, TV is a two-dimensional medium. You can have, but it's a hybrid between theater and TV. So the sets look like you go, oh wow, where'd they get that wood? Oh, it's painted.
Wow.
You know what I mean? It's also.
Is it because the theater community is so strong that when they started the show, that's where they pulled from?
I think it was born just when I want it to be real. I don't want it to be skits and goof offs. I want it to be like you give change. You put flowers in vase, you know what I mean? Vases.
Yeah.
You can't, it's like nothing gets a pass of like, oh, it's just sketch reality. There is no sketch reality. It's all like, well, what human would stand like that? Who would do that? And again, if you build a world that's all goofy, then that's a goof. Then you fall to the goofy world.
Right.
But, it's everything. The attention to detail is very right up my wheelhouse.
Okay. So, but I want to go back to, because you have, a funny family.
Mm-hmm.
You have other people in the show business in your family. And in fact, I think Al's going to be on the show. So, your brother Al. So let's talk about where do you think that came from?
I think both my mom and dad were funny.
Okay.
And their families were funny.
Okay.
And my aunts are funny and my uncle.
Okay.
So humor was a very good commodity growing up. You know what I mean? They got out of trouble. It's how if you can make somebody laugh, then you can't get in that much trouble about it.
Right.
There was no screaming and there was no yelling in my house. There was like, take your shoes off, that kind of thing. But no, there was no screaming fights, which now I understand is just as bad as having too many fights.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Oh,
right. Is that what you did instead?
Yeah,
you think?
It's okay.
Sure.
It all worked out. It all.
Yeah.
You just laughing was it was more important than music or anything. You know what I mean? The comedy was more. Monty Python was just as important as the Beatles.
Right.
Because, in a way, but not maybe not as much because the Beatles were this. Beatles were
right.
But they were very super important. And my mom would let us stay up late to watch shows. If there was I watched the first, I was 12 or 13 when the first Saturday Night Live came on, and my mom let me stay up and watch it. She told, I think you might like this show. She told us about it.
Wow. I think I'm not sure if I saw the first one. I may have seen the second one. Mm-hmm. I remember hearing about it in school.
Yeah.
On Monday. I think I might have seen the second one, but yeah.
No, the most vivid memory I have of that is watching Gil Scott-Heron do What's the Word, Johannesburg with that. Uh-huh. Remember that with a shaker thing, just going, what is this? Oh my God. It was like the thing of like, it was leading the people. Like, no, we're going to tell you what's cool. It's okay. Trust us. Come on with us.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, it really changed things. I mean, before that, really, Carol Burnett was probably right. That was probably,
which is nothing against Carol Burnett.
No.
Oh my God.
No, nothing against Carol Burnett, but it was
a different, it was more like, and nothing against Dean Martin and his show when he'd wear like an apron over his tuxedo.
Right.
You know, which there's, you know, so you have to get older to at the time you're going like, I don't want, you know, the things that you hate as comedy, you realize when you're older, you were just jealous of. You know, everybody going like, oh, I hate this comedian. Well, he's not successful anymore. I don't hear you complaining about it.
Right. Yeah.
You hated his success, not him per se. Really.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Although I did love Dean Martin. I did love me some Dean Martin. His show killed. You know, I don't know if he rehearsed. He didn't seem to. He just showed up.
Just watch Greg Garrison rehearse it, and then he would go and do it.
Right. Yeah. He didn't know his lines half the time.
Right.
Yeah.
It was like, and they said that he had apple juice instead of whiskey in his drink.
Right. So. Yeah. That's what I heard.
It's like, you can't perform sloshed.
Yeah. I guess he hardly drank
He had
at
to
all.
come up with a character after being with Martin and Lewis, you know what I mean? He had to go, well, who am I when I'm in front of an audience by myself?
Yeah.
You know?
That must have been weird to make that transition.
Oh, I think so. But he's the one he just went, I'm done.
Yeah.
That Italian thing of like, you're dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
They didn't, I think it was the last couple of movies they made. They didn't even talk to each other.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how you do that.
No.
Yeah. And I think Abbott and Costello had a similar relationship sometimes where they wouldn't talk to each other, but they would act. Yeah. 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 It's like, yeah. Well, come on the screen. And
short. Life's too short.
It just seems ridiculous. And you're successful. It's like, we're on top of the world. We're Martin and Lewis. How big are
we have to make it hard on ourselves, you know? So
yeah, I know that when they were doing the original Star Trek, that Shatner and Nimoy, or at least their agents, were fighting over lines, and this person has more lines than my person. And so the reason those characters are friends on the show and share so much screen time is so they can have close to equal amounts of time on screen. That's as the actors. That's why they became buddies on the show. It worked out.
Yeah, God bless.
It worked out, but
that's a good thing about it too. No one would know that. What's
not
obvious, it's seamless. It's like you go, oh no, I just accept this as reality.
Yeah,
I don't have to worry about the machinations of
how it
exactly.
Sometimes that's the best stuff. Strangely, sometimes this weird, you know, like how Laurel and Hardy got together. Do you know that story?
Was it just that Max Sennett just went, okay, you and you?
Yeah, because Stan had quit performing because he never had a character that hit. He made all these movies and he never had a character that hit. And he knew Charlie Chaplin, but Charlie Chaplin wouldn't help him out with his career because they had worked together at Fred Carno's group.
Right. That group went over.
Yeah. And then so Stan was just writing gags. And then they needed somebody to be in this movie, and they're like, be in this movie with this guy. And he's like, I know, I'm done. I don't want to do that. We've talked him into it. I think he was 40 or something when that happened.
Oh man, I bet so. I said, did you see that movie with Steve Coogan and Riley? The only thing I didn't like about it is I wish you kind of wanted a trailer beforehand, a primer for kids to go, here's why they were so funny.
Right. I know.
I mean, to you and I watching, they should be, you know what I mean? Like the Trail of the Lonesome Pine is like, oh my God, that's beautiful. They're doing it so well. But and we're even older than we are.
Right. You know what I mean? Right. No, it's true.
It's for our grandparents, you know what I mean? But Laurel Hart means, same as W.C. Fields.
Right.
You know, it means something to you because you go, no, that's where it came from.
Yeah. It's hard. What I've noticed is that when something's influential, it's really hard to explain to people who came later because when it's influential, that means everybody copied it. And so they'll see something and they go, and they go, oh, that's cliche. It's like, it's not cliche. It's the first time anybody did that.
That's why you should, like, if kids, my kids, I would go like, okay, let's listen to these songs. Okay, now listen to this song.
Yeah.
This is the same time. Like, I love playing, like, the last Axel Stordahl, Frank Sinatra song, which is like old, like, if I could go, those kind of like guilty teen Sinatra. Yeah. And then the guy at Capitol, who I forget his name, was like, nobody would hire Sinatra. And he goes, and everybody goes, he was just a teeny bopper star. And he goes, no, this guy's a true genius. He knows phrase. He's a genius. You're crazy. So he goes, well, I want to work with Billy Mays. I want to work with Axel. I want to work with, whoever.
Was Bill Evans in that group?
I think so. And he goes, well, why don't you work with this guy, Nelson Riddle? I never heard of Nelson
Riddle. Yeah. Yeah.
And so the first song he did was like World on a String. And it's just like the difference is like night and day. And it's like this giant, and you go, see, it's so rare. You can go, here's where the switch happened.
Yeah.
Right there.
I've heard that people who were on the Ed Sullivan show when the Beatles came on, there were other people on the show. People forget, right? They had to follow the Beatles.
Mason or something like that, or Rodney Dangerfield. Like some comedian was on too, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
Something of our world.
But I think there was a singer on, or a couple of singers, and they were backstage, and the Beatles were on stage, and they said, "Oh, it's all different right now. It's all different now." Like, right? You could tell, like, oh, we're old now. Like, I don't know what that would have been like, but it sounds scary.
Like the thing is, there you think, oh, there's going to be a day when you don't know the top 10.
Right.
Oh, there's not going to be a day when I don't know the Billboard top. Oops, well, now.
Yeah. You know what's weird? There's a time when you know. Well, there's a time when you don't know because your parents are talking about stars you don't know, and right, like what are you talking about? And then you start to know that, and then there's a time when you're hip, like in your 20s, when
and
you know
all the words to all the songs,
you know everything,
albums, and then
you get late 40s, 50s, and you're like, you don't know at all. Like that person's famous. I don't know who they are. I've never heard of them, and you kind of don't care. That's that's the other thing. Like,
I keep up with it for work.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like you go look at this and you look at that, but it still is like you go, oh no, it's now you just help other people's ideas come to fruition, as opposed to your ideas, because your ideas are that of a 56-year-old man.
Right.
Where you go like, well, how about you, 27-year-old kid? Let me help you. Is this what you want? Let me help you produce that and get it right. So it's your vision. Because people don't know what they want, really.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like when you're beginning, so you go like, how about this? Here's a shot here. This could go here. This. What if it's like this? What if you did it over here? And you go like, is this what you want? Is this what you were trying to say in the beginning before people started rewriting it? Like, that's what my job is, to get out of their way. Clear a path for them to shine. They can do their thing. It's because you can't. Well, you can't be that. You just can't be that.
Yeah, it's interesting because you watch people, particularly in comedy, I would say, because comedy changes so much. Particularly in comedy, you see people get out of touch, and it looks awful. As Jerry Lewis got older, and he was still like, it didn't fit anymore. Like, when he was in his 20s, sure, you can be that guy. You ever watch like Leave It to Beaver, and it's cool when he's young, but as he gets older, it just seems like, should you really be acting that way? Yeah. The younger he is, the better that show is.
Oh, the show's and Eddie Haskell's genius.
Eddie Haskell is genius. He's one of the best characters that's ever been on TV.
Him and Barney Fife are my two favorite characters, and Larry Tate.
Oh. Larry Tate used to live around the corner from me in North Hollywood.
Did he really?
Yeah, David White. Yeah.
It was so great. Just perfect cycle.
He would fire Darren every week.
Exactly. And then hire him back.
He would dangle partner in front of him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You're going to be a partner. Then he would fire.
They were just pure full-on alcoholics.
Well,
They'd make it a triple. It was not a single drink.
Well, Lou Grant was an alcoholic on TV.
Yeah, and later when he became the drama show.
Yes.
I always thought it was an interesting move. Kids will love talking about Lou Grant. When they go, you know what, we're going to take that clip to the Moore show. Yeah. And make him an editor, but of a hard-hitting paper. Not a TV show anymore, but a paper.
Right. And it won't be a comedy anymore.
No, it's going to be hardcore drama talking about like how bad the Shah of Iran's dictatorship is. You know what I mean? It's like,
I don't know.
Where did I miss this?
I don't think there's ever been a spinoff like that from a comedy to a drama.
I don't think so. I mean, you have like, what's the dude from Hill Street Blues?
Which guy? You talking about actors or writers or?
Yeah, Dennis Franz.
Oh, Dennis Franz. Yeah.
Isn't he like the longest? Because he was on like 6 different shows.
Okay.
You know, he was started at NYPD Blue, then went to something else and did something else, and but he was the same dude.
Right. Oh, right.
Same world. It was just like different worlds. It wasn't like Frasier became a serious drama after Cheers.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. But yeah, that's such a weird transition. And the only reason it went off the air was popular, Lou Grant. You know why it went off the air? Because Ed Asner was very political and wasn't quiet about it. And the network's like, you have to be quiet about this. And he wouldn't do it.
Nope.
Yeah. But yeah, it was, I don't know how many seasons, 1 or 2, whatever, but it wasn't long. I watched it too.
Oh, yeah.
I watched it too. Actually, it was the best of the Married Tyler Moore Show spinoffs.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. And there were a ton of them.
Here's my imitation of Mason Adams. Miss Penshaw.
This whole show is for people who are 55, 56 years old.
America.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So
bored of like broad humor. You go like, this is for an audience of 1.
So So I want to get back to the origins of your thinking about comedy. Were you thinking about, did stories matter to you much, or just the idea of show business matter to you
show
more?
Business matter, but stories are something you came across. You realized that you had an affinity for. And again, for me, it came from detail.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So like the more detailed something was, the more story it had.
Right.
And
Okay.
The more truth it was, because it was like everything comes together in your comedy. Magic, because I loved magic tricks when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And then you realize, oh, I see, you're doing a magic trick. You're creating this fake world. And the thing you mentioned that doesn't ever come up again is the sleight of hand of going, here's this world. This world is deeper than what you're seeing here, making it better and making your brain absorb it more. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So the more detail and the more real it was, the more you get sucked in the story. You know, it's like,
right.
And so it was all about when it was seamless. You know what I mean? When it unfolded, it was like just such a satisfying feeling. You go, oh, that's what that is. I mean, it was your book that put it all in words for me. You know, Invisible Ink was the thing that I went, oh, yes, of course. I didn't realize that. Yes. You know, which again, you take with you, like in those, you know, remember those Celebrity Jeopardy sketches?
Uh-huh.
I would write those with other people, and always the dirty phrase would be a joke, so that your brain would go, oh, that reason that crazy thing was in there, so Sean Connery could make a joke about having sex with Trebek's mom.
Right.
But when it comes back again, you're clean. And the same with Mr. Miyagi with the, you know, when Daniel-san gets the fly, you think it's a joke, so your brain goes, joke. I don't have. That's not, you know, that's
right.
That's deep within me. Which is
right.
Either you accept that or you don't.
Right.
And a lot of people don't accept that, and it's just all gloss. And there was nothing fun about that to me. You know what I mean? There was nothing fun about just gloss.
Right.
Even when it's a sketch about just getting hit in the balls, it's always more fun when there's a story around it. You know what I mean? Or when there's where there's a setting that makes a larger world.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, it's not the story.
Or else stand-up would be the most popular thing of comedy on TV.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what I mean? If it's just about jokes and not about characters and stories, then it would just be, well, here's a, non sequitur strung together.
Right. But what's interesting about that is that stand-up had an evolution where it became, although there were some stand-ups like Bob Newhart, and there were monologists.
Right.
But a lot of comics were just joke people. They just joke after joke after joke after joke. And sometimes that still works, depending on the comic. I don't know anybody who's doing it right now. I think the last person I can think of was Mitch Hedberg.
I was about to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
The one that's great is great. And it's also, that's just as valid.
Right.
You know what I mean, I'm not saying that's not valid. I'm
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
that's an art that is different than story art.
Right.
It's, it's not saying it's bad or because I love it. I love Mitch Hedberg and Stephen Wright and people who do just stuff. But when you're talking long form of thing,
yeah,
like The Simpsons, if Homer didn't love Bart, it would have been pulled off the air. If there wasn't story underneath the gags,
right.
No one would buy a Bart Simpson T-shirt.
No, it's true.
And they don't realize it, but it's deep within them. They go, "Oh, there's something I like."
Yeah, well, it grounds things.
Yeah,
it grounds things. I think that when somebody's doing something like what Mitch Hedberg did, or a comic like that, it's more their personality. It's not even the jokes alone. It's this person telling those jokes. Stephen Wright had a way of doing it. Mitch Hedberg had a way of doing it. Henny Youngman had a way of doing it. Right? It's the same thing. Yeah. Right. Rodney Dangerfield did that. Right. But their personalities become the thing underneath.
Well, the personalities become the story.
I think so too.
It's the underneath of the thing that makes you somehow more attracted to it. And it means because it's hard to, it's like usually, because again, story skills and gag skills and joke skills are all different skills. Some people have them all. You know what I mean? People have one or two. But it's like the ones you don't have, I think, are the ones you're like. I don't have joke skill.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I can think of gags and things like that, and stories and character things, and things would be funny if this person said this thing about this thing,
right?
But not just update jokes or clean lines of like, here's just a pow bam joke. It's like I'm always amazed by.
It's amazing when people can do that well,
like Attell and people like that. You know what I mean? It's like you just go, what? Where did you? How did you come up with that?
Yeah, I remember when I was working with T-Shawn Shannon for a week on something, and T-Shawn was so good. A joke would come to him fully formed, like this perfect little thing.
Hey man, why don't you put that here? Just put
right. Yeah.
right here.
Yeah.
Man. Did he have any bears around it? Did he write any jokes and stuff about guys in bear suits? That was one of T-Shawn's favorite.
No, but I remember we went to see a movie, and it was a bad movie. And then on stage that night, he had, 10 good minutes about that movie that he did. I know he didn't write down. I was with him all day. Like, it was crazy.
No, T-Shawn was great to work with. He was he's a good dude. I just talked to him like a couple months ago.
Oh, you did?
Before COVID, whenever that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. When was that?
I go, man, who wrote that sketch? Who did that?
Yeah. Good. What's he doing? This is just now us talking as people.
He's in Texas.
Okay.
He's in Texas hanging out with his wife and just doing projects and things like that. He loves
it. All right, cool. Good for him. I'm glad he's having a move to Texas, huh?
Yeah, he loves it.
All right. Where in Texas?
I think Houston. Okay.
Sure. All right. I have a cousin.
That worked for NASA.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I think they went back to Houston.
Oh, okay. All right. There you go. I think that's where I met him, in Houston.
Oh, what we were working on?
I was doing, there was a club there I was working. And it was me, T-Shawn, and Steve Harvey.
Oh, see, because probably they hired, because everybody thought T-Shawn was black.
That's the funny. That's what I said. I said to Steve Harvey, I go, if you had to pick Brian McDonald, Steve Harvey, T-Shawn, T, period, Sean, who do you think is the black person? Yeah. Yeah. I said that at the time. I actually told Steve Harvey to move to LA because he wasn't famous or anything. I'm like, dude, move to LA. You'll be do you think I should move there, Brian? You think I think so. I think so, Steve.
He's a machine, man. What a machine. God bless him.
That guy works really hard. I never saw a comic work like that.
No, and also I think he just did cut out one of his 7 shows that he does. You know what I mean? He does, and they're all his gigs.
Right, yeah.
Family Feud, his TV show, his radio show, his talk show. I think he writes a column. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
God bless.
I literally never saw a comic work so hard.
I find it hard to get up in the morning, let alone.
We were staying in the condo that the club had put us in, and T-Shawn and I would wake up and Steve would be gone. because Steve would go to the town wherever and find out where people were hanging out and talk to people and make friends with people and invite people to the show. And like, that's what he's like, I got to get up in the morning and work. Like, that's what he would do. Like,
bless him, man.
I
wish I had a little bit more of that. Not too much, just a little bit. Just a little.
And he cut my hair. He had his own clippers that he'd bring with him. And he's like, dude, you need a haircut? Cut my hair on top of everything else. So yeah. Anyway, where were we? So, okay. So we're talking about story and how we think how you think it gives something. I said grounded things, and maybe that's the. So when you started working, now you were doing, you had a kind of improv group, but I wouldn't call it an improv group, right?
No,
because I never saw you do any improv. Right?
No, we did improv, but if we did like game improv.
Okay,
you know what I mean? Like foreign language or leave the room and think of, you know what I mean, a occupation. I'm sure there were games that other people did, but we just picked up to fill out an hour and a half.
Okay. So how did that start? When I met you, Don't Quit Your Day Job was you, your brother Dave, and Gruber Dave Allen. Dave Gruber Allen, as he's now known.
Well,
right?
it started in Des Moines when comedy was hot, like in 79, 81, around there, whenever that was. And Dave and like Banas was there at that scene.
Oh, yeah, Steve Banas. Yeah.
Dave and Willie Farrell and not Will Ferrell, but Willie Farrell and Ben Hewlett. These dudes are still performing in Des Moines and who are super funny dudes. They started a club at a dinner theater and they did comedy there. And Dave started a group with, I think, him, Patty Ryan, Gary Fox, and Gruber, a dude we knew from like doing theater in Des Moines. And then I joined in like after I left college, like in 83, maybe.
Okay.
Dave, I want to join your group. And he goes, okay.
Okay.
So it was all Dave. Dave was the whole impetus behind any show business. And
which
so
Dave? Your brother Dave?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's go. What? I don't want to move to LA. I want to move to New York. TV's in LA. Let's go. So we all moved to LA, and then we worked there and did colleges and worked at UCLA as stagehand. So we ate and lived at the ranch.
Right.
And,
let's talk about the ranch because I talked a little bit about it with Weinstein. But the ranch is probably got to come up from time to time because I have a lot of ranch people booked. So can you explain the ranch?
The ranch was I think it was like $600 a month, $800 a month, something like that for a 1, 2, 3 bedroom house.
All right. I really should have paid rent at the ranch, by the way.
Yeah.
I owe you.
We had like 10, well, I think rent was like $80 a month. You know what I mean? There's so many people living there. It was pretty much, it was really, I mean, it couldn't have been better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Except for the abject poverty. And not, because we didn't, and remember too, we never drank.
Right.
We never did drugs. We smoked cigarettes and did caffeine and nicotine were our drugs. So it wasn't like we were blowing money, and cigarettes were cheap back then.
Yeah.
And so it was a place where it was Banas, Mark Fight, Dave and I.
Okay.
And we moved out, stayed with Banas because Banas was already in LA.
Okay.
And he was in Hollywood, and he found a place and we all moved there. And then after that, Toby came and Steele came and Ben Hewlett moved out for a while. Scott Taylor, so many people came in and out of the ranch, and we would just play cards all the time. And people we met at doing comedy in LA, like you and Judd and Feig and Kindler and Madison and Hazel would all come over and hang out at the ranch because it was just a hangout place. You didn't have to worry about being clean, or there's plenty of room for, it wasn't in an apartment building. It was like you could make noise and goof off in the backyard, and it was very wholesome.
Yeah, it was. It's funny. Grube and I went to the ranch when we happened to be in LA at the same time. And so we went to the ranch just because we had, let's go, let's just go check it out. And we were taking pictures of it in front of it and stuff. And these people came out like, what are you taking pictures of our house for? We're sort of explaining what it was. And they're like, we heard a bunch of college students used to live here. It's like, well, kind of. Yeah. Yeah. But that's what they knew, that a bunch of rowdy college kids lived there. But a lot of those people went on to big things at the ranch. Yeah. Apatow and Feig and you and Jim Ools and a lot of people.
Yeah. And it was just a good play. It was like the Algonquin small table. Very, very subset group. Different. And also, again, fun was the coin of the realm. It was the more fun you had, the more, playing cards and cards were about making jokes. It was never about playing cards or taking somebody's money.
Right.
You know what I mean? We'd buy in for $5. You remember? It was like penny, nickel, dime.
Well, I never played cards. I just hung out while you guys played cards.
But we did. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't play cards. My dyslexia makes it hard for me to play cards.
Oh, I bet so.
Yeah. Cause I can't remember what suits, what does this make? I can't hang on to it. So I'm like,
and then you can't look at the chart.
Right. Yeah. Right. You can't ask people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not.
Yeah.
So, I just hung out and had coffee.
No, we had fun. We did have fun.
It was really fun. And I don't know how many years the ranch lasted, but
I think it was from 84 to 89.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Because in 89, you guys got the show. Higgins
we moved out to New York for Comedy Channel to do Higgins, Boys and Gruber.
Yeah.
And that's when the ranch left.
Yeah. But the ranch went with you.
Well, because it was with Dave and I, but Rich Kenny was there at the time, and Fight was still there. But everybody moved out, and we all. But
I mean, the ranch went with you because your show.
Yes, was a set.
Was a recreation of the ranch,
which was built by Leo Yashimura, who is one of the set designers on SNL.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There you go.
So you know what I mean. It all comes around.
Sure. So okay. So you had your group and you guys did some sketches that I saw a lot of over and over again. Not a lot of perfected them. Yeah. Not a lot of new stuff. Every now and then it's
put something in.
Yeah, but not a lot of new stuff. But then you got into another level of show business, and stuff had to get produced more frequently. Mm-hmm. Was there something that you learned about how to do that?
I think, it was just, it's those lessons that you know already. You know what I mean? Because you always think there's a secret.
Right. Yeah.
But the secret is you just sit down and do it. You know what I mean?
That's hard to explain to people.
No, and it's because they want to know what and they don't want it. It's luck and being at the right place at the right time and just willing to work harder than anybody else.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, and also realizing that, this idea, letting the idea be itself. You know what I mean? Like I started writing this thing, but it turned into this thing. Mm-hmm. So I got to get rid of the first thing
right, sure.
that I thought it was, because now it's this thing because it's its own entity and it's not mine. It's not. It's like when you make a joke, the joke isn't yours. It's like in the ether. It's like its own thing, and it's everybody's joke now. So it's like you just learn to let go. Kill your darlings. Was that Billy Wilder who said that?
I think it was somebody before that. So I don't remember who. I don't think it was Dorothy Parker, but it was somebody like that.
Yeah, just like cut that out. That doesn't work, and get rid of the fact.
Yeah,
you do your time. Would you like to the intricacies of whatever? Then you go, no. Put the intricacies behind this bigger thing.
Yeah,
the intricacies are mustard. They make a hot dog better, but they're not the hot dog. Don't forget the hot dog. And that's a thing that people get lost in the weeds when they're.
Can you explain that? Can you unpack that a little bit and talk about that? I think I know what you mean, but I want to explain.
Well, it's like all this stuff that makes you when you're into comedy. Usually, when you're younger, the things that you love are those tiny details, the precise things that you'll share with other nerd comedians.
Right.
But the thing that it's about is not that.
Mm-hmm.
That's there for the love of the art, for the comedian to put in, and it'll be the thing itself, whatever it's about. The Simpsons is about a family.
Right.
You know what I mean? It couldn't just be a series of gags strung together. This is the thing. The tiny intricate details, which as young, you just want to go, I want this to be the forefront of it.
Right.
No, that can't be. You have to put that in the background. I would always say it's like you during pure comedy, because as I would always say to my right, people don't like pure comedy. It tastes bitter to them. So you have to sugar it, and you're doing your pure comedy, and you have to throw stones at people so they don't come and attack the story of pure comedy. So you need jokes and gags and big things that people do. And you also need a door to allow smart people who have a guardian against laughing at fart jokes or getting involved. You have to think of something to let them come in to get past that sentinel that stops them from laughing at silly and stupid things.
Sure.
That's the thing I learned too about doing that exact thing, making it so that there's a gateway so that so people don't feel dumb. You don't put enough stuff in there where you make the audience feel dumb that they don't know it.
Right.
There's structure underneath it that supports the dirty joke or the, thing, the silly name or the, getting hit in the balls or whatever goofy thing, whatever sophomoric and puerile thing you want to do, which is my cup of tea.
So, when you are working with somebody who is new to the show, or maybe you're talking to somebody who's just starting out or whatever, I notice certain traps that people fall into on a regular basis. And I also notice things that are very hard to unteach. Can you think of anything like that? Have you seen any patterns over the years of new people coming into the show?
It's everybody does. It's a weird thing because you have the old you has to die to become the new you, the you that's on TV. But that doesn't mean you're no longer you. But you can't have those. Sometimes the habits that got you there are not the habits that are going to take you forward. But you can't erase all of it, or else there's a reason you got hired. Right. So everybody has to become their own person, and they rely on, like everybody. You don't give somebody enough jokes, they'll find them. You know what I mean? Like, so you have to make sure that they're written for in a way you want to make them shine. And if you let people shine and you can figure out what's the best thing about them, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You know what I mean? Right. It's like, but it's, you have to go, what makes you you and what are you great at? Let's do that. And then expand on it a little bit. You know what I mean? And make that grow a little bit more. We don't have to, you don't have to be so out of your comfort zone every time. You know what I mean? Because it really is like, it's like school. You're not yourself on the first day of school. Everybody would hate you. You know what I mean? You have to slowly introduce yourself to the class and see when it's good to do a joke or when it's appropriate to make that gag at the teacher, or, you know what I mean? And so nowadays it takes even longer, now it takes years for people to get to know somebody, and then they forgive them and they go, oh, I trust this person. So a joke that they do season 4 wouldn't have worked when they were season 1.
Okay.
So it's like making people aware of what they're good at and helping them get to, again, what their point of view is. You know what I mean? What is your humor? What do you think is great? Right. You know what I mean? What is funny about you? And, it's always that here's what you love. Here's what, Joe wants. So concentrate on that area, the Venn diagram of your talent, because we already have them. Right. We already have the show. You know what I mean? So you coming on, what do you bring? You know what I mean? All the new people, you just go, what do you bring? What can you do? And then they find their way and you help them through encouragement. And again, you don't want to get in their way or give them ideas. You might go, hey, here's a tiny note on this sketch, or, you know what I mean? But you don't want to get your stink all over it. So, well, then you should have written that sketch.
Right. Yeah. I remember there was, when Steven Spielberg was producing Poltergeist, for whatever reason, he was very worried. He was making E.T. at the same time. He was very worried about Poltergeist. So he was basically on the set every day telling the guy how to direct his movie. And so, except for the last sequence, he wasn't there for that, but everything else he was there for. And later he said that was a huge mistake. He didn't let the guy make his movie. Like, why did I even hire a guy to direct the movie?
Right, exactly. Why, if you're going to cut your own hair, cut it.
Right. But having said that, what kinds of things, how do you get out of the way, and how do you encourage people to bring themselves? Is this the same thing with writers, new writers as well? Is this the same? Yeah. It's
all, I tend to just go find your joy. Whatever you find joy in, other people will find joy in just because you love it so much.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it may not work, and you don't know what's going to work, but you can know if it's good.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can know if it starts out well because it comes from a place of truth, and not truth as in not facts.
Right.
Because facts are the killer of comedy. Unless you're doing a historical sketch, then you should stay with the facts. But you want to make it so that it's like, what is your truth? What are you trying to say with this? You know what I mean? It's like new cast members will come in and they'll go, I have an idea about a guy who sells hats at a hat factory or whatever. And you'll go, okay, well, what do you do that's funny in this sketch? What? They come at it from a premise point of view.
Okay.
You should come at it from, where do you score in this sketch?
Right.
You know what I mean? Where are you funny? Where can other people be funny? Because a writer will help you structure it.
Right.
Help you get there and make it so that it makes sense and there's other jokes for other people. But you should start off with a thing. Oh, this goofy thing I do brings me joy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do this thing. Oh my God, that's great. I love that. Mm-hmm. How do we find a way for that to get in here?
Sure.
And then just helping them get there by being encouraging and, checking in on them and making sure they're okay. And when it gets picked, going to watching the blocking and going, are you sure you want this? Maybe this would be better for you. Or, what are you trying to say here? Because the set, I don't understand the set, are enough gags in there. And if there's anything, and usually it's, you wait for bigger things to give the notes on, because everything else is a lateral move.
Right.
Unless you think it's going to make it better, or that might not work if you do that. Or you go, make sure that this is in a 2-shot. Because if you're just ping-ponging and they're over here, this dialogue isn't going to play. So make sure they end up together.
Right.
So you can have a 2-shot where you can pop into a close-up, but you don't want it to be, you know what I mean? Then your brain doesn't know where to go.
Right.
Things like that you just learn after doing TV for 30 whatever years.
Right. And we skipped the bit, but you were writing for Jon Stewart for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Not the successful show.
Not the Daily Show, but the Jon Stewart show.
The Jon Stewart show, yeah.
Right. Did Al also write on that show?
Yeah, Al wrote on that, and Andrew Steele wrote on that.
Okay.
And Brian McDonald wrote on that.
Okay.
And Doug Benson. No. Doug Benson wrote on. Maybe I think of Trashed. That was my first show I ever was a head writer on, was Trashed, and that was Hossein, Benson, Ned Rice. That was a great staff. But Jon Stewart show, I knew John from the Comedy Channel because he wrote for Rachel Sweet.
Oh, okay.
And he had opened up for us a couple of times.
Okay.
And so I just loved him, and we loved it. I still love him to this day. Mm-hmm. And he said, "Do you want to come out and help me? I'm moving from MTV to Paramount.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mind coming out and helping me for a few weeks?" I go, "Sure." And that turned into 2 years.
Okay.
And so then when that ended.
Well, what did that teach you? Well, by the way,
that taught me. I think that truly taught me the importance of a performer, of casting, of letting the performer shine. And again, you getting out of the way of the performer, because John would make up stuff in the interviews that was funnier than anything we could have written and people thought was written.
Okay.
I mean, it was so, it was just amazing to watch. You know what I mean? It was just like, what? Are you kidding me? How did you come? You know what I mean? You'd be dumbstruck. Every third show, there'd be something so brilliant. You'd go like, did you come up with that?
Yeah.
And just being kind and being sweet is just, you don't have to be a dickhead.
Right.
You know what I mean? And if you don't like somebody, you don't have to be mean to them, just fire them or say, you know what, I'm sorry, it's not working out. You don't have to torture them.
Right.
You know what I mean? and then let the people you trust thrive and trust them to do weird things or do strange stuff and take you a little farther.
Mm-hmm. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Dick Cavett or somebody. And they were writing for Johnny Carson or whoever it was. Some host. I don't know who they were writing for. It might have been Steve Allen. But whoever they were writing for, they insisted that they do a joke. They were like, this joke is funny. You have to do this joke. And there was an argument about it. And the host was like, I don't think this joke is going to work. And the writer fought for it. And so the person and whoever's telling this story, I wish I could remember who it was, said this comic went out and they sold the joke. They went out and they gave it everything. They sold the joke and the joke died. And that writer said it was from that moment on, I realized I don't have to stand out there and take it. I can, right? I'm not the person out there.
That's the greatest lesson for a writer to learn.
Yeah.
It's like, I think writers should all go perform.
Mm-hmm.
So that they know what it's like to bomb.
Right.
And they know what it's like to trust a performer when they go, I can't, like Jimmy Fallon is like, when he's on fire, nobody's better.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll do mimes in the monologue, like after he tells a joke, like little things that no human is going to laugh at those, but they destroy me. They just like so precise and perfect. And it's like you go, and he'll go, that joke's not going to work. And you go, and same with John. If he said, I can't do this, you go, well, I trust you. You know.
Right.
You're the fighter pilot. You know what I mean? I'm ground crew, and I'm helping you fly higher. So if you don't think you can do this, if you go, I don't know about that, and I'll go, well, why don't you try it? If it works, great. If it doesn't, we'll cut it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But if it's like, no, this isn't going to work, then you go, well, then I'm not going to. I'll save that joke for somebody else because also you have to own it. To truly be great, you have to open up your soul and have nothing between you and the audience.
Right.
For you to be great.
That's true.
And you go, that's why they like when performers are in the groove, they're like, oh, they're so sensitive. They're so, because they have all their emotions out on display and you're making fun of them because you've got 60 layers between you and pain.
That's a really interesting thing. I think that's true. I know that's true in all kinds of writing. It's always where I'm trying to get people to be. And I thought about it for a long time. I was trying to figure out, I'm like, I never really got good at stand-up. And I'm okay with that. I don't have any, I learned a lot. Yeah. I learned a lot of things. Before stand-up, I couldn't stand in front of people and talk with any confidence. Now I do it all the time. I learned a ton of things. And I didn't do it long enough. But the other thing I realized later on in life was, you know what? Because I was trying to make it, essentially I was trying to make it in the movie business. Stand-up was just this weird side thing. Because that industry was predominantly white, still is, I felt like I had to check my blackness at the door. Mm-hmm. And then I felt like I couldn't be as honest as I needed to be on stage. And so I was like, oh, I couldn't get any better because I wasn't able to expose who I was on stage.
Right. Do you think it was you? Did you think it was both, or just was it mostly the system, or you stopping yourself because you thought that's what the system wanted?
Oh, no, I think it was the system. The system often if and that still happens. I won't say where, but there are studios and people I've worked for where I go, if I say something that seems to come from a black perspective, I get a lot of pushback, a lot of, hey, like I have some agenda or something. I'm like, I'm just using my history and the things I know to inform this conversation and point of view. I don't have an agenda. And so you end up having to check a lot of that stuff at the door.
Well, hopefully too now, hopefully it'll be a little bit better.
Yeah, I hope so.
Well, I wouldn't know, but it's also, everything is kindness.
Right.
If you're kind and cool, there are no problems.
Right.
And if you're kind and cool to this person and he's kind and cool to you, then there'd be no need for unions or laws.
Right.
Be like, we live in a utopia.
Yeah. But for whatever reason, maybe some of it was internal, but I think a lot of it was external, that I felt like I had to protect myself and it didn't allow me to go deep. It didn't allow me to explore.
Right.
If I had been somebody like Chris Rock or Chappelle, who was just interested in being a stand-up, right? And didn't feel like they had that, like they got into show business, bigger, broader show business through stand-up.
Right. Because that was their passion.
Right.
That's where they wanted to be. The other stuff is just like, that's another thing for people to learn. It's not about money. Right. If you think about making money, you're never going to make money because so few people make money in this business.
Right.
You've got to think about the art. What you're creating should be the win.
Right.
And then money will come or it won't come, but you'll be on a path where you know what's right because you're you know, it's like Ools, that story Ools wrote for a soap opera.
Uh-huh.
And that was his first job out of college. Went to write for, oh yeah, I'm in California. I'm a paid writer.
All right. We're talking about Jim Ools, who wrote Fight Club later on, but yeah. Good.
And I was a rancher.
Yeah,
and
he was a rancher.
He wrote a script and they loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And he went, wow. And he tried to write that same script and they hated it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he kept on doing that and he had to quit because he didn't know what right was.
Right.
He didn't know what they thought was right because the soap operas weren't his passion.
Right.
You know what I mean? And again, it's not bad to and remember this, people, you can't sell out if you're getting money to eat. There's no selling it if you are going, I have to pay the rent. You know what I mean? It's like, no, there's only selling out is like, if you have enough money and you're only doing this for the money, this horrible thing, then that's selling out.
I disagree with that slightly. I slightly disagree.
Well, there's certain cases of like, you have to kill this person.
Well, or you do something against what you believe, right? Like,
well, if you're doing something, I'm like talking about if you take a job on a show that you don't think is great.
Oh, that's
eating.
Yes, but if you take a job on a show that you think is damaging,
yes, then that's different.
Right.
That's morals. I'm talking about if you went to go for the storm front or something.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I gotta eat, man. You know, I did work in a grocery store and eat. There's you don't need.
Yeah,
I'm talking in the worlds of clean comedy.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because rarely do we ever. I've never heard anybody say, "Man, that guy sold out. He went and worked for white supremacists." I don't equate selling out with.
Right.
It would be more like they made the 15th, movie in a series or whatever just for the money. Then you go.
Right. Yeah.
But if you got to eat, you're just working in comedy, not because if you put morals on it, then there's
another thing. When I moved out of LA and didn't have any work, I was a janitor for a little while. And when I was a janitor, my job was throwing away tons of food in this building. It was like a private club, and there were lots of restaurants in this club, and they threw out tons of food every day. And I'm like, can't we give this food away to people who are hungry? I mean, it was unbelievable. And they said, if you feed people, you can't, my job is like, you'll lose your job if you're seen feeding people. If you can't give this food away. But I would have people waiting by the dumpsters when I threw food out, waiting for food. And I was just like, you know what? If I lose my job because I'm feeding people, I'm going to be okay with that. Like, I couldn't be like, that's my job. I gotta, that just sounds like I didn't, it sounded.
No, that's the thing where you go like, I'm just following orders.
Right. That's what I mean. I thought about that.
No, there's not.
Yeah.
And it was probably some weird legal thing, you know what I mean? With everything so crazy. Like, hey, if you give somebody food and they eat it and they die, they can sue you or some stupid.
That's what they said it was. But it was a private club where there are lots of lawyers. And I thought if they wanted to fix this, they could. If they wanted to figure out whatever waiver or whatever, they could figure it out.
You just go like, and again, that's people not being cool. That's going like, you know what? If you're how about this then? Just leave the bags by the door.
Right.
Don't put them in the dumpster. You're not giving away food. You're just sending them by the door.
Right. Yeah.
Keep having to come there. If that's great. If not, great. You got it.
Yeah. So I think you can sell out.
You ate pretty well.
Me?
Yeah, you had to have eaten pretty well.
I did eat pretty well. Yeah. No, but I just I didn't want to lose my job. I needed the job.
But also, you have to sleep at night.
Right.
You know
exactly.
What I mean? But it's like this story about that. That dude who saved the lady on the bridge or whatever something, and he goes, well, "How could you do that?" He goes, "How could I not?"
Right.
I had no choice in the matter. Right? This person was, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
there's moral choices that are different than comedy choices.
Right. Okay.
I mean, comedy choices are gloss and they're all like,
Right.
you know, even if you write for a show, you go, I hate that show, and your family can eat, then to me, that's not selling out.
No, that's not.
If
Yeah.
I have enough money and I'm doing pretty good. Hey, here's tons of money to work on that show you hate.
Yeah.
Then it's selling out. You know
Sure.
what I mean? But people
Okay.
are so, you know, when you're younger, people are so, they love to throw selling out on the, you know,
Oh, right.
people listen to the band I love. Oh, I hate them. You know what I mean? Now that my band is sold out because people like them. You're like,
Right. Yeah.
forgiveness in all things.
By the way, a lot of young people don't understand the term selling out
that's
anymore.
That's true. Because I don't think there is selling out anymore.
Right.
Because there's no difference between, like, doing a commercial was verboten. You know what I mean? Even being on TV was like, you're right. I think there's no line anymore. So you can cut this all out. Nobody's gonna-
No, it's like selling out. What do you mean? Isn't that a good thing when you sell out? When you know, it's like, no, that's yeah. I don't think they understand. It's essentially selling your soul, is what you're.
Yeah, because also there's no difference because they do Instagram and they do, and it's true. A great commercial is, if you do a hilarious commercial, that's just as valid as a hilarious sketch or a hilarious.
That's
You know what I
true.
mean? It's like if it makes you laugh and it's super funny.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, those Geico caveman ads when they came out. I loved them. You know what I mean? It was like that was such a fresh take on something.
Mhm.
You go, and you know, it was like, what's wrong with that? That's a piece. You know, that's a piece of craft.
Yeah, I think if you bring your best to it, whatever it is, if you bring your best,
and that's the secret too. It's like, that's the thing you learn of, like, don't halftime it. You know what I mean? Don't look at the clock. Give yourself 100% in it, because like that's how you'll talk to stand-ups who become writers, and you go, "Are you ready to become a writer?" Because you're gonna have to give up some of the stuff. You can't go, "I'm gonna save that for me." You can go, "I'll save that for me if it won't work in this situation."
right?
But you have to give it your all, or else you'll be miserable. You know,
Right.
because you can't tell what's going to get picked and what's not going to get picked. And even when stuff kills at the table, it dies at dress. We don't know what's going to work, but we know what's good or what has a certain spark to it or has a certain flair to it. And a lot of stuff like is just all radio stuff, which is super hilarious at the table when you're reading it.
Oh, sure.
What are you looking at when you see it?
Right.
You know what I mean? There's things like that where, and again, like William Goldman said, no one knows anything.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that's the only truth in Hollywood or show business, or else every movie would be a hit.
Right.
Every story would be perfect. Every TV show would be great if everybody knew, you know, and good doesn't equate with successful.
Right.
You know, those
that's true.
Things, you know what I mean?
They have nothing to do with each other, actually.
And sometimes sometimes they're,
oh yeah,
you know, art and commerce, but usually, like, It's a Wonderful Life, I think our favorite movie of all time, was not a hit. Shawshank Redemption was not a hit.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and so it's like, but does that make him not good?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I think Arthur Miller said, you know, don't be seduced into thinking that which does not make money is without value. Right. Right. Right.
You only have to answer. I mean, I don't let, it's like, who directed Birdman?
Oh, yeah, that guy.
That dude.
Yeah.
It's at a round table of directors, and they're asking, do you make movies for yourself, or do you make movies for the audience? And then, you know, I think it was it really one of the Scott brothers? Ridley Scott goes, I make them for myself. It's all for myself. You know what I mean? All for myself. And they got to him, and he goes, I do not know if there's a nuclear blast and the world came to an end and I was the only person left, I do not think I would be making movies. Yeah. You have to have an eye on the audience. You know what I mean? You have to let them in.
Right.
You can't keep on putting blocks in front of them so they can't enjoy it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Then write a poem. You know what I mean? Then just do something that's small and tiny, but you're making this broad thing. And again, don't make it so, people love that kind of stuff.
Right.
No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about you fulfilling your own, it's living in that diagram, that Venn diagram of, let me concentrate on this. And again, if it's in your, again, and you have to write what you love. And you have to, it has to mean something to you too. And you have to be saying something. And that's a hard thing, I think, for people to, in comedy, especially to grasp, because especially our generation, because when we grew up, it was a very special episode of.
Right.
Arnold would get, he'd get raped on Facts of Life or whatever. And you go,
right,
on Different Strokes, you go, like, oh, God. So, so comedy and drama don't mix. Comedy and emotion are a bad thing. And you go like, no, emotion doesn't have to be they die. It could be just kindness or something that speaks to your heart, because that's the only thing you remember.
Right.
You know, how it made you feel.
Right.
You know? At the end of Back to the Future, when he comes back, it's your kids. You're going like, wow, you know what I mean?
Right. Like,
you feel something. And that's what comedy, I think is just as important. And I'm not talking about bathos. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about fake or that people love that, you eat that with a spoon. No, it's like true emotion. Again, truth is the key.
Right.
You know,
I think that's several times in this incarnation of the show, and even in the other incarnation of the show, I brought up MASH as an example of this. Right, the television show MASH knew how to walk this line in a very specific way, and probably All in the Family
for the first.
Yeah.
And then they forgot how to walk the line.
Yeah. Well, Larry Gelbart left, I think. Larry Gelbart left, and I think
McLean Stevenson left, and that's when it went downhill.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think it.
For me, as soon as Colonel Potter showed up, it was like, okay, horse hockey. That's it.
Oh, I
still watched, but I went,
I didn't watch the show until like my mom hated the show, so I thought the show was bad because that's what you do, you know. And then I watched it on my own. By then, Potter was the guy.
Right. So but then did you go back and watch?
Oh yeah, I've seen them all now several times, and I still, when you were a kid, yeah. Oh, when I was a kid, I would watch the reruns, and you know, so. But I like Potter because I was introduced. So I think part of that for people who watched it all the way through is there was a shift.
Right. And you don't like the shift. Again, it's like Saturday Night Live. People, when it got, do you remember when everybody hated it?
Yes.
I don't still hate it. They have Saturday Night Dead ready to print it any given.
Right. Yeah.
But like, oh, this cast is horrible. This is the worst ever. Who's in that cast? Farley, Sandler, Spade, Chris Elliott. You know,
right,
that's the worst ever. The worst people ever. They didn't realize it was an institution.
Right.
Where your Saturday Night Live, your best cast is either high school, junior high, first years of college.
Right.
Before that, they're not as good. After that, they're horrible.
Right.
So wherever your sweet spot is where your humor aligned. And so everything before it, you have respect for, but everything after you think stinks.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like it shows you, like you were introduced to Harry Potter. So not Harry Potter, Colonel Potter has an emotional relevance to you.
Right.
Or to me, he's just an interloper. And I'm like, what's Frank Gannon doing on?
Right. Yeah.
Dragging it.
Yeah. I actually think the show died when Radar left.
Oh yeah. Could be.
I think it's when Radar left. I found them unwatchable when I tried to watch them all.
And also Hot Lips got too kind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like,
yeah.
And but to me, the show that says that the most for me is Cheers.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, you cared if Sam and Diane got together.
Right.
You were sad when Coach died.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's not all like Andy Griffith, which I think Andy Griffith might be you read Andy Griffith scripts and they're like,
Andy Griffith is, I tell people all the time.
To me, the greatest show ever on television.
It's up there for sure.
Opie Birdman.
Yeah. It's amazing.
I want you to listen to that mama bird, those baby birds. Mom, listen at this window. It's like, what?
Yeah.
And it didn't seem out of place.
No, it wasn't out of place.
No. And Barney, you could feel sad. He was a pyramid of character where at the front, he's this nerdy goof.
Yeah.
But he's a human underneath it. You know what I mean?
That's what made him lovable. Barney,
You understood him.
He was insecure.
Yes.
Everything he did came out of his massive insecurity.
Right.
Everything. Everybody
and go too far and admit it and knew he did wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And feel like a dummy, but then he'd, you know.
Yeah. No, that show is off the charts well written, and I have a hard time explaining that to people. They don't get it.
No,
They're like,
no, it's like, it's just so well done, and it's so fully rounded where Andy isn't cool all the time.
No, he's not.
I mean, he sometimes accused Opie of doing things, and he's wrong.
Right.
You know, like in It's a Wonderful Life, when he kicks you didn't see that.
Right.
He will kick the Christmas decorations and yell at his kids.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just the truth. Because there was a while, and I'm sure somebody said this before me, when you go through phases, and all I was reading was nonfiction.
Uh-huh.
And then I forget what I read, but then this epiphany came to me, which again, I'm sure somebody said before me, but it's that nonfiction teaches you facts and fiction teaches you truths.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like a human condition, and you go like, well, because now to me, the thing I say to my big mantra is like, when I was little, I thought Dickens characters were just made up. I thought that mean people in Dickens were fake.
Oh,
and
right, sure.
Now they're running the government. You know what I mean? Now you see them, see these people who are like, the whole joy is to be mean and cruel.
Right.
The whole point is to be, and you go like, wait, I thought you people were fake.
Right.
I didn't think real. You know what I mean? I thought that everything was like, we've talked about this before. I lived in a bubble.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Where I go, you know what? Racism isn't gone, but we got a handle on it. Sexism isn't gone, but we got a handle on it. There's no more casting couches, because that was my world that I lived in.
Right.
And all anecdotal evidence would say that these things were true. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And then you go, wait, father, what?
Right.
Wait a second, are you kidding me? He did what? These people did this? They said that?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like you go like, oh yeah, you dummy. It's like when you go, that guy's great, that guy's nice to me. Well, he's an asshole to the grips.
Right.
But he's nice to me. Well, that doesn't mean,
right. Yeah.
And that's what I was living in. I was living in that world, and you can't, it's what is water. You can't see it because you're living in it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Which again, as we've talked about before, they also have to forgive me for living in that world.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You have to go,
Right.
no, and I have to forgive them for not knowing I lived in this world. You know what I mean?
Right.
And everybody has to forgive everybody, and you forgive yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because forgiveness is about your reaction to them, not them. It has nothing to do with them. But you just go, oh my God, I didn't know this stuff was, you know what I mean? It was like, burp,
Mm-hmm.
They hate her that much. They hate women that much. He only attacks women governors. They only attack Pelosi. You never see him talk about Chuck Schumer, really. It's
Right.
What?
Right.
And again, it's just these facts are thrown in your face. You go, I have no other determinant than this is true. I thought it was, I really thought we had a grasp, but it's again, like, Shakespeare still makes sense. Only the props and the costumes have changed. Human emotions are the same, and people like to tribal up when they're afraid. And the people fed them this thing because they're acting like Germany in the 20s, when a loaf of bread was a barrel of marks,
right?
Because they've told them they're, who's the they? There's always a they.
There's always a they. Yeah.
Whether it's Muslims or Jews or blacks or Catholics or Irish or whoever it is, they're always a they.
Yeah.
And they're going to come take from you.
Yep. Yeah.
A joke that my brother told me, which I know is not his joke, but there's an industrialist, a non-union guy, and a union guy. And there's 12 cookies on the table.
Oh, yeah.
The industrialist eats 11 of them. And he says to the non-union guy, that union guy's trying to eat your cookie,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And they fall for it. And they go, well, yeah, this guy's trying to get my...
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Frederick Douglass said that. Frederick Douglass, when he was a slave, he was rented out to boat builders. Do you know this? It's in his autobiography. So he was rented out to boat builders. And he had some boat building skills. I don't know where they came from, but he had boat building skills. And so they had poor white people and they had slaves working in building these boats. And he said what was interesting is the people who owned the boat factory or company would tell they'd say when the white workers would say, we're not making enough money. They'd say, the people in charge would say, well, we could fire you and hire a slave, and that's going to be cheaper. So take what we're giving you.
Oh,
right. And then then they would say, and you don't want emancipation. You don't want these people to be free, because if they're free, they'll come after your job.
Right. That's all they're going to come after your jobs. And I saw somebody tweet it out. I don't know who it was. It wasn't me. But it's like, next time they tell you China stole all our jobs. No, you gave them to them. So you could pay less money so you could make more money.
Right.
That's all you did. They didn't take your jobs. You gave them to them. So don't give me that, you know. And it's also how they believe that, you know, and again, nothing is perfect, but hey, working man, working woman, do you like a 40-hour week? Yeah. Do you like weekends?
Right. Yeah.
Well, thank a union.
I know.
Bad unions out there, but they are the only people working for you and their.
I know. You know.
Sometimes they get too big and they get too bad, but nothing is perfect. All systems are flawed, but you gotta go. Who's looking out for the working person? When we were growing up too, I talked to my kids about this. Our heroes were like truck drivers, and you know what I mean? Like shows about truck drivers and people who worked for a living, and you know what I mean? Smokey and the Bandit, about working class people were our heroes, and not billionaires. And you know what I mean? Like, there was a dignity to work where you didn't look down. My dad had so many. When he died, he was a janitor. Mm-hmm. But so that means he's not as good as your dad, the doctor. That means he's a good man because you know what I mean? It's like all that stuff has to be just wiped away, and you got to look at the character of somebody's soul of like, you have a choice how you view people. There is an intrinsic right and wrong. 2 and 2 equal 4.
That's what I was going to say, because why can't I think of his name? Orwell.
Scrooge McDuck?
Yes. Yes. George Orwell said that freedom is the ability to say 2 + 2 = 4. All the other freedoms stem from that, something like that.
Yeah, and that's what's missing now.
Right.
Know?
Yeah, you can't say that.
No, because that's like, no, it's not.
Yeah. There's no virus. What are you talking about?
About him. It's like, my opinion is more important than your facts.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So
and about snowflakes, it's like, oh, I see. So you people are the snowflakes. Always the victims. You know?
Right.
Again, if you were just cool, let's get together. We can figure this all out.
Yeah. But this is kind of what you're talking about with fiction, right? This is the truth that fiction gets at, right? The fact that Orwell said what he said. Orwell's books are full of facts.
Right, and no one's going to read it in a pamphlet. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah. Or I should say full of truths.
Yeah,
truths.
This book is full of truths. Oh,
well, it's pigs and horses and whatever, but it's full of truths about how human beings operate and about how people in power operate.
And again, it's like that 70-year cycle they talk about. You think, oh, that happened. It's not going to happen again. Oh, no. You always have to be vigilant.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
I think that when it really comes down, and this actually is what I think stories are, one of their functions, is that we are supposed to honor them. Some societies do more than others. We kind of have turned them into, we've monetized them so much that's the way we tend to think of them. Mm-hmm. But I think that the history of Jewish culture is one of storytelling and honoring those stories. Mm-hmm. And then by the time you get to the Holocaust and say, let's tell stories about the Holocaust, that's a long history of that, even before you get to the Holocaust, right? Because it's all about the survival information that gets passed down from one generation to the next.
And and clues of like, don't let this.
Yeah. When you see this, that means this is going to happen. This is the next stage. This is the next thing, right? First they'll do this, then they'll do that, right? And it's knowing all of that stuff. If you know the stories and you pay attention to them and you honor them, that changes how you respond.
Yes.
And I think that what we do is we the stories die with the generation that has them. We don't carry them on with any. We don't understand they have information for us. So we go, well, that was World War II and that was Hitler. That's not us, right? And when those people all die off, most of them,
the cycle starts again.
It's all over again, right? But if we paid more attention to the stories and honored them more, like there's an African saying that where there is an old person, nothing need go wrong.
Right.
Right. All they're saying is this person has lived through a lot of stuff. And if you listen to them,
Wasn't there the tribe of people with the tsunami who their story was that it goes away? You know what I mean? Is that in your book? That's
in my book, and it's on the class. The Moken. When the tsunami, they knew all the signs of a tsunami coming because it was in a story that they honored.
Right. And that's what I think it is. It is passing information, and it is passing information of joy or sadness or learn these things. And if you aren't passing something, if you're not, that's why people go, what are you saying? You got to say something. I'm writing a screenplay. What's about? Whatever, about making money because I got to eat. And you go, because I do believe that stories, when movies were, that was more powerful than the threat of war from us. It was like American soft power was movies and culture.
Oh yeah,
doing and looking at us saying no, they And so when stuff goes to hell in a handbasket, all the dictators want to go see America's just like us. It's no better over there.
Right.
They're crooked too. And you go like, oh, that's not what Radio Free Europe is supposed to be. It's supposed to be, we didn't live. And we've talked about this many times too. No. Like I told my kids, the only people who have done nothing wrong are people who have done nothing.
Right.
Humans make mistakes.
Right.
But the smart people go, oh, I did that. That was awful. But now it seems it's either they'd made this mistake, so they are done.
Right.
Like, that's not cool. So it's like, again, it's like, Churchill said about democracy, it's the worst system.
Oh yeah, it's the worst system of government. Yeah.
Except for all the others. And it's like, you know what? Yeah, sure, America did all these awful things. But you go, that's the way shit happens. People do awful things.
Right.
And you've got to go, well, what are they supposed to be?
Right.
What is this supposed to be?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, is this supposed to be, because I do believe, again, we can't tell, but I believe this is the greatest country on earth. Because it is every country on earth. You know what I mean? Especially like during World War II when they took a swath, Yeah. Even then it was like discrimination was happening.
Oh yeah, sure.
You can't say then that World War II was bad, that Hitler was just as bad as we were because we did this, because not everybody did that. And there were people who knew it was wrong and they didn't do it. You know what I mean? It's so complicated. But if you start with a place of, it's like, if they know better, they'll do better. So it's like, again, it's like you can't start off with like, it's never going to be fixed. You always have to hope. You have to go, we can be what we're supposed to be.
Right.
We can be the idealistic America with a capital A if we strive for that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Again, you're not supposed to be Christ. You're supposed to be like Christ.
Right. I think that what happened, I think, with our founding documents was that they put in there the ideal that then allowed the other things to fall into place. They didn't say some of us are going to have rights and just some of us are just not. Right. That's not in the document. Right. No. Right. Even though they omitted people, there were certain things but once they said all men are created equal, right? Which the language
exactly. That opened the door to allow you to make that true.
Right.
And, you know what I mean? And then it's like, is it true yet? Not yet.
Right.
You know what I mean? But hopefully we're working on it.
Yeah.
But there's that thing of like, I just can't, it's like, I probably as you are too. When you're in this, you go, that guy's an asshole, but that joke is still funny.
Oh,
you know
right. I mean? Yes. Right.
Horrible human being, but I got to admit that was a funny joke. You know what I mean? And you have to separate the art from the artist. You have to separate the thought from the deed. You have to go, this is this thing. This ideal is not these people. It's the ideal which we bring to life.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like Wagner was a horrible person. That doesn't, not that I listen to Wagner every day.
Right. Yeah.
Like, okay, yes, they're awful, but they did this thing.
Right.
This thing's not them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
There's, some people are, their work is better than they are.
Yes. And also I can understand too, like if it directly affects you, then you can't see past that. And I understand that
That's a different thing. Yeah.
That's a different thing. That's like you had to, you're living with that pain inside of you, which is your truth.
Right.
And so you see it through your truth.
Right.
And so my truth is different. And so I can go, yes, that's funny because that never happened to me.
Right.
You know what I mean? That was never, that doesn't mean I don't have empathy for these people.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it should be shoved in their face.
Right. No.
But so it's art and artist. It's person and idea. And the idea should win. And the person should be, again, like we were talking about earlier, the joke isn't yours.
Right.
It isn't mine.
Right.
It's its own thing now. This script you wrote isn't you anymore because you can't make the character, if it's good, you can't have the characters do anything you want because it doesn't fit.
Right.
Because it's not you. You're pulling it out of, like, who's that dude I love? Stephen Pressfield, that War of Art.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like they're talking about the muse coming to visit him. And like you set up a clean room, you think, and these things come to you, and they are their own things. They are their own fully formed. Like Paul McCartney, boy, did you ever heard this song? Yes, I had this dream of the song. It just came to him.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you can't explain the ethereal. You can't explain how, but you can explain how you can make the path to make that easier.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like work in a clean space, just set apart some time, get away from people.
I remember when with Close Encounters was the first time I remember this happening. So Steven Spielberg makes Close Encounters. It's a huge hit. And then he decides he wants to fix some things. And I remember thinking, it's not your movie anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like, you gave it to us.
Yeah.
And we like it how it is.
Yeah, the same with all the Star Wars fixing. You go, like, no, it's not you. It's no longer yours.
Yeah. It was yours for a while. It's like Frank Lloyd Wright, when he would go to somebody's house that was the house that he designed, he would move their furniture around. Like they invited him to dinner or something. Well, this chair doesn't belong here. It's supposed to be over here. It's like, guess what? It's not your house.
And all the Guggenheim leaks every day. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, man.
Yeah, he would rearrange people's furniture.
No, it's also, you can't make your kids do exactly what you want to do either. They're their own person. You know what I mean?
Right,
you created them, you did all this stuff, but they're their own being, and it's not of you. And I think that's why it's like, it hurts less and less when a joke dies the older you get. When you're young, when it falls flat, flop sweat, and you feel awful. And you just go, oh my God, I don't want to feel this way anymore. Because you think that joke is you.
Right.
And it's not you. It's
right.
Joke. You know what I mean? And you have to separate. And also it's like, you have to separate praise from damnation.
Right.
Because if you believe the praise, you have to believe the damnation. You just have to do your thing. You have to be an eye on yourself. And you want to make other people laugh, happier stuff. But like we're saying, good is good for you. You got to do the best you can. And the best you can is this at this time. If you fucked around and didn't do it, then that's another thing.
That's a different thing. It's funny. I've always pushed back on this idea that if you believe like the good reviews, you have to believe the bad ones. I don't believe that's true.
Well, I think, no, if you take it to heart and you were only bolstered by good.
Oh, yes.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about what the best reviews, though, was like when there used to be real critics, they'd go, I forget some sketch. Eric Mink was a critic for the Daily News. And he said, was like, this sketch went on, when everybody was attacking us.
Yeah.
It's when you go to, and you go, oh, he's right.
Yes. Right. That's different.
But that doesn't happen anymore.
No.
I mean, there's nobody you go like, we're trying too hard in this scene. If they would have done this, they should. And again, it's now they should have done this joke. And you go like, good job. I'm only talking about when you live and die by this.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
When you go, you know what I mean? Because the praise, you can go, yay, they agreed I was right. You know what I mean? But again, if you go, oh, everybody hated it, it's awful. You go, everybody didn't like it.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah. What I was thinking about was when I heard people say that, it made sense. But then I realized when you listen to people critique, they will often put something down before they build it up. So it's safer to say that's terrible, right? Because it makes it seem like you have...
Until they'll go rewrite it when the thing's a huge hit, and they'll go revise their opinion.
Right. Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? So that to praise something, it puts you at risk.
Yes.
Because somebody could come along and go
up yourself and saying, I like this thing.
Right.
Like I always go as a joke, you know what? I don't care what anybody says. I like the Beatles. I think presents are fun. I think getting a present is fun. I don't know. I'm going on. I know You know,
Yeah.
They don't agree with me, but
Yeah. It's just it's easier to put something down.
and also it's easier to make fun of something
Yeah.
than to go, wow, I really like that.
Yeah. And so that's where I would go with that. I'm like, no, you don't have to believe the bad stuff. You have to look at where it's coming. If a good critique of your work is the one where you go, yeah, that is true. And it's often you knew it was true.
Right. And that's what we try to do too, is the when you're like, and usually you can only parody something you love.
Right.
Because if you parody something you hate, there's no truth to it.
Right.
And you want to make it so the people watching the show go, oh, they got me, you know what I mean? And you want to make it so if you ran into that person at a party, you could go, oh, I was just poking fun. It's not vicious or mean.
Right.
It's not an unfair hit. It's like you're pointing out something. You're not tearing these people down.
Right.
You're pointing out something about them that is a valid point that isn't about their, some mean snipey.
Yeah.
And sometimes that happens, you know what I mean? Because you're in that business where you're on the line, you cross it sometimes, but you try to go make it a fair hit on that person, make it a critique of what they're doing that they would laugh at and go, oh yeah.
Right.
You
have to have a person who's self-reflective enough to do that. Right. Yeah.
It's not even, it's like that you can defend yourself to them.
Oh yeah.
And sure. They're mad at you. They're the asshole. It's like,
right. Yeah.
No, you're taking this too far.
I read a thing about a baby gorillas. There was a gorilla who was the head of this troop and was being kind of a jerk. And baby gorillas started imitating and kind of making fun of this guy who was in charge. And I'm like, that is in our, it must be in us.
It's in our DNA.
Yeah, it must be a primate thing, right? There we go. This is because you're reflecting them at themselves. Yeah. Oh, I look ridiculous. I don't want to look ridiculous. If people are self-reflective, they'll take that on, right? That's the job of the podcast.
But also, if they were self-reflective, they would have probably not acted like the asshole they did. If they could see themselves,
it's very difficult to see yourself. Other people tell you who you are often.
Yeah, true.
Right?
You always figure out somebody else's problems way before you.
Yeah. So other people say, you do this all the time. Oh, I do?
What? I never realized that. Yeah.
If you listen to other people, and after a while, a pattern emerges and you go, okay, that's a real thing.
Yeah. Right. And also they'll point out something, it's so deep within you, you don't realize. Like an Iowaism is you go also too.
Huh.
That's a Midwestern thing. Like, and somebody pointed it out to me and go like, well, I don't say that. And then, yeah, you do. You say it all the time.
Huh.
It's like a odd colloquialism. Which I think all Midwest is also too.
I had some Missouriisms when I first moved out of there that I can't quite remember. I remember some pronunciation things that people would make fun of. Like I used to say wash.
Yeah.
Instead of wash. And I wouldn't hear it.
Yeah.
People would point it out to me. They're like,
then things happen too that get so that you forgot you said that. Like everything in Iowa, I worked at a grocery store. You sacked, everything was a sack. It wasn't
right.
And then you go like, no, that's a bag. He's a grocery bagger. No, I was a sacker. And everything, because now I think of a sack as like has to be made of cloth usually.
Okay. Yeah.
It was, a grocery bag. It isn't a grocery sack, but it was a sack.
Huh.
Wow, I forgot I even said that.
Yeah, I have some of those things. I had a friend who was a little kid on the East Coast, and she said, we didn't say rocks, we said stones. It's a stone. You pick up a stone, right? Which sounds really old to me. It doesn't it's a rock.
It sounds classier, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it does sound classier. Like
I guess
wall.
Stoned to death. They weren't rocked to death.
I guess that's true.
Yeah. That's
a much more pleasant way to
no moss,
to be rocked to death though is a nice death.
That's your Metallica.
That's the way I'd like to go, just to be rocked to death. I was thinking more of a baby sort of.
Oh, I was thinking so they rocked so hard, like that it took your soul up to.
Either way.
Yeah, either way.
Either way. I do like the more pleasant.
Yeah.
Just
rock. Then you fell asleep. And wake up.
It sounds pretty nice. That's the way I'd like to go. So if anybody's listening, whoever makes those decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dang,
So, okay. So it seems like I just want to make sure we're going to have a lot of people listening to this show or watching this show. People do it either way. It's a podcast and I think they come to the show to get information they can use. So I'm trying to hone in on something that people can take away. Let's say they want, in fact, I know someone who wants to, her dream one day is to be on Saturday Night Live. That's her dream. She's a young person. That's her dream. And so I don't know. Again, it's like you wishing you were going to be on your show of shows or whatever. Like whatever she ends up on or whatever she ends up doing may not be SNL, right? Because who knows? But there are things she can do that prepare her to be ready for whatever it is that is coming.
Right.
Right. And so what do you think those things would be?
I think those things are trying to get to know yourself, deciding between jealousy and true dislike of something, acting with kindness in all things, working, because it's not all just writing or performing. You know what I mean? It's like, it's because you're shoved in a world suddenly that you have to be prepared for to survive.
Right.
And that preparedness, it comes on stage a lot, but it also comes from you. And concentrate on your joy and do characters that are truthful. Do things that are true to you, not stuff, because everybody's got that.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's already there. The stuff. Don't ape things. Don't mimic things. Be yourself and find. That's why you have to get to know yourself. You have to find your voice.
Right.
And what you do best, because you do something better than anybody else.
Right.
It may take you a while to find that. But I do believe everybody is unique in their own way. And the only thing that's stopping them is their own. And that's not to say you'll become successful or even make a living, but the thing that prevents you from being the true you is this eye watching you or this judgment watching you. Because for you to truly be, you have to open up your soul. And if you don't know who you are, you open that up and it flies away.
Right.
So you really have to expose yourself to stuff. It's like I always say, it's the difference between I could go away for 5 minutes. You and I could both take a break. And we could go, okay, we're going to write a fake poem to read to each other, right? We'd come back and we'd read a fake poem and we'd laugh. I couldn't go away for 5 minutes and write a real poem to read to you.
Right.
That's what it has to be. It has to be a real poem of your humor. It has to be true to you. And it has to, you have to let yourself out there and be exposed and learn to build up enough armor that you can deflect some of the arrows. But you should be exhausted after shows. Exhilarated, but exhausted. Do you know what I mean? Like you can't go to sleep after a show because there's too much adrenaline, but you are exhausted. And you have to find what within you, and it is working hard, but it's not working. Again, it's that Art of War book. The only time when I was free, I didn't like freelancing at all because I had a daughter and you know what I mean? And a wife. And the only time I felt good when it was like, you got a job in 2 weeks. That's the only time I would relax. But then when do you refill your humor? When do you refill your energy? It's like you work on a thing for a finite period of time a day, close that door, put it away. Your brain will still be thinking about it. But you're now watching a movie, so you can comment on that. You're hanging out with friends. Because all great humor to me comes from goofing off. And you're goofing off and those ideas come. And and again, you always hear it with, Niels Bohr or Einstein or whatever. You're going like, what that idea? Oh, I was walking through the park suddenly and poop, it popped in my head because their subconscious was still working on it. And if you do your thing, close it, leave it, don't look at it till the next day. That's, it is a discipline. It's like you have to go, this is what I do for a living, but I'm not being paid for it. This is who I am. This is what I do. And I just have to keep on doing that. But I have to eat as well. So you got to get a job that can support you doing your thing, but you still have to do it. Like we said, there's no secret.
No.
What the secret of being great is you are great. You've cleared the path for yourself.
Right.
That you've exposed yourself and you actually have it's like Rock and Chappelle, I think, are so successful because they have something to say. Do you know what I mean? They don't just they tell jokes and they're one of the two funniest people on earth, but they have something to say. You go, I wonder what Rock is going to think about this. I wonder what Chappelle's going to think about this.
Yeah.
They have something to say. They aren't just making jokes. And it takes a long time to get there. And not everybody gets there. And that doesn't mean that, Jack Benny didn't have something to say, but he was still hilarious.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you have to find what is you. Mm-hmm. And bring that to the front. And if that's you and you have insightful things to say, find a way to say them. If you like goofy gags, find a way to do that. You know what I mean? Make it so you're the boss. You're the engine that powers you. Don't go chasing things,
Yeah, I was just talking about something Billie Holiday said, and it also reminded me of something Louis Armstrong said. So Billie Holiday said, if I sing like everybody else, I might as well not sing at all.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. And that's what you're saying. Right? Well, Billie Holiday sounds like Billie Holiday and nobody else can sound like Billie Holiday. And I also heard a guy talking about when he met Louis Armstrong. This guy was a musician. And he's like, yeah, I met Louis Armstrong one time. And Louis said, do you sing? And the guy says, I don't sing. And Louis said, if I can sing, anybody can sing.
Yeah.
Right. Because what he was saying, I think the thing that worked about Louis Armstrong is he doesn't have a singing voice.
No, but he has. Yeah, exactly.
Right. If he had tried to sound like anybody else, he would have failed.
Yeah.
But because he was expressing emotion through that voice, then it's like he can sing.
Yeah.
Right. He can sing.
Yeah. His version of a wonderful, no one can sing it. He owns that song.
Yeah.
And he's not a singer. It's like, you don't have to be perfect to be perfect. And perfect is the enemy of good.
It is.
Get it done. Just get the thing done. Don't live in your head and not be able to think about it because you want it to be just right. Nothing's just right. If everybody planned on having enough money until they're secured, no baby would ever be born. You know what I mean? You're never ready for anything. Just let it out there and let other people judge it. You think it's good and fix that joke. Spend that time crafting that one joke to make it better, that one thing. Because that could be the linchpin that opens up a whole world for somebody. And that's what that ephemeral thing, if I put it into craft, is that thing we were talking about earlier. It's care.
Yeah.
Like, within the first 10 minutes of a movie, if you're 2 minutes of a movie, if you're going to like it or not.
Yeah, you do.
You don't know if it's going to be great, but they're giving, that thing is, I believe it's care. It's that they cared enough about that shot to tell me information.
Yeah.
I watched, because this is the longest time off I've had in 10 years, you know what I mean? It's a long time. And I just watched The Watchmen, that series on HBO.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the transitions in that are so fantastic. And they have such a great montage in it that you just go, they really thought about this. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? They really it just sucks you into their world. You know what I mean? And that's like jokes too. Jokes can build a world. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just that little extra phrase of, of just, you've created a picture, because it's all a magic trick.
Yeah. It doesn't happen very much anymore, but I try to explain this to people often. I go, I've lived long enough and lived at a really good time in American cinema, right, where there were classics that came out on a pretty regular basis. When we were coming up, a lot of classics came out. Mm-hmm. Like it was just like classic after classic after classic. Godfathers and Jawses and Star Warses and like a bunch of them, and E.T. and Ghostbusters a little later on. But I remember sitting in the audience for those movies, and I remember that it was almost instantaneous. You knew you were watching a classic. It was almost instantaneous
because you wanted to see it again.
Yeah,
because that's the thing. You look, and you've seen when Soderbergh took out the sound of Raiders and did it in black and white, and everything that's going on as you're watching it. Uh-huh. You actually understand it better with the sound off, than with the sound on. And it's that's why those guys loved Norman Rockwell's compositions, because he would tell a story with a picture.
Yeah,
and look at all these. There's so many different details here that I'm just looking at this, but it's like Easter eggs aren't new. You know what I mean? They're like in paintings with the layers of things, or they're in, like when I was little, I remember the first book I ever read that was Dune, that I was so absorbed in that, what I mean? Not in that, and Once and Future King. were
Yeah.
the two that really like, they created such a world that you just fell into it because they allowed you to. They helped you go, come with us. We're going to create this thing because there's going to be enough stuff around that you feel like you're in VR because we've created this world.
Right. I often say that about a VR. I go, when people are trying to make stories more immersive, and I'm like, when they work, they are immersive. It doesn't need technology.
Don't try to make them like I got to write something smart. That's another thing. It's like you have to free yourself and going. You have to trust that you are good and smart and funny.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're doing it, that filter will come that won't allow you to make it not funny,
right,
or not good. Don't put the extra burden of I have to write a classic, or I have to speak for all my people, or I have to say something important with comedy.
Right.
No,
right.
You're not saying something important. The people will put importance on it.
Right. Well,
if you're just preaching to the choir, you're not going to change anybody's mind.
Right. I used to have these conversations with, and I wish he had lived so I could get him on the show, but because having a conversation, August Wilson. And when you would talk to August, it was really, he always had a really interesting perspective that was completely his. Like I remember once he said something about the Confederate flag. Now, August Wilson, African-American playwright, and big important dude, and you think he'd have certain perspectives. And he said to me one day about the Confederate flag, he goes, I actually don't have a problem with the Confederate flag, which surprised me. I'm like, what? He goes, I don't have a problem with the Confederate flag. He goes, those people who fought under that flag fought for something and died for something they believed in, and I don't have a problem with that. He goes, my problem is actually with the American flag and the things that have been done under my name. That bothered him more. Mm-hmm. And that's a perspective that was honest and true to him. And it wasn't anybody else's thing. It wasn't anybody else's idea. He didn't care what people thought he should think.
Yeah.
Right.
He just what he thought.
He thought what he thought. And he also always had something to say, kind of like what you're talking about. You talk about Chappelle, you talk about Chris Rock. August talked the same language. He just didn't do comedy.
Right.
But he spoke the same language, and he was revealing his soul all the time. You'd have a conversation with August, and then you would see his play, and you'd go, we had that conversation. Right? Like, he was saying things he believed. Like, it's especially his last play, where I'm like, we talked about all this stuff. Like, this was on his mind. He was writing the play, so who knows?
Like, because he was living in that world of that thought.
Yeah. So that's probably, it's not like he took the things I said and put them in his play, or took the things somebody else said and put them in his play. I think that's just where his mind was. But
the time was there, so you use you as a sounding board, because that's, again, you do things you're interested in.
Right.
When you go, it's like they say, write what you know. They don't say that for no reason. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just because you don't know a time period or whatever doesn't mean you can't learn it, but the truths are what you know.
Right.
I mean, it's like it doesn't have to be, by like my favorite episode when I think about it of Star Trek, not the actual episode, but when I think about it.
Okay.
Is the black and white guys.
Right.
And then the what?
Right.
How dumb it is when, don't you see, he's black on the left side. And I'm
right.
You're going like, that's so dumb. It's like little egg, big egg.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
It just blew my mind as a whatever, because I didn't watch it because I was, but watching it, you just go, what?
Yeah.
That's, you know what I mean? And stuff like that. That's a truth. That's not a fact.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And you go,
yeah.
That points it out to you. Oh, I can see. Because also all things are universal. And they say the more specific they are, the more real they are, the more universal. Because it may not be that tuna that guy's eating. It may be that that grandpa's eating. Your grandpa may have liked ham sandwiches or
right.
You know what I mean? It's the way he's talking to the thing. That's what brings you into the universality of humans.
Right.
Or like in Dances with Wolves. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And the dude the Indian guy sitting in bed, and he pulls out his kid's doll.
I remember.
Goes, oh, man, but it was the first time Indians were treated like people on screen that I could think. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And it's also like we were talking about too, how important representation is to see people like you on TV.
Right.
Like I told you, my mom knew every Italian on TV. Spanish could point out every Greek guy on TV.
Sure.
So to make it open it up to more people to go, yeah, look that's me on TV. Somebody like me is an important thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's also
just in one show, but it should be, everywhere you could see, oh, look at that.
I also think it's important. I was just talking about this yesterday. It looks like we're going to have one of the writers from Mary Tyler Moore, the Mary Tyler Moore show on this show. And I hope it works out. It seems like it's going to. That's one of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
Unbelievably well-written show. I didn't understand until I was a little older how many women were writing on that show, because usually the face of those shows, like it was, James L. Brooks and Alan Burns. And so I thought, well, guys write this show, right? That's who you see. But what I did see were funny women on the show, right? Mary had an important job on the show. And even though that was representation for, I know Oprah was very inspired by the Mary Tyler Moore show to do, which because she was a producer on the news. I want to do what Mary does, right? So she was seeing representation that way. But there's also something about a young boy seeing women in charge of things, right? So it's not just the representation for that group. It's also for other groups to go.
That's normal. Yeah, that's a thing. That's the thing. That opens up a whole thing of, I didn't know that was possible.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like growing up, I didn't think that show business was a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
How would I? No one in my family was in show business. No one knew we were crazy, but we did it.
Right.
You know what I mean? We just go what do we got to lose? Which is easier than if you got something to lose.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like just letting people know that this is a path you could take.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's just showing that that's a thing that happens, and you show stories about, again, well, man, pollution is gone, because I don't see any more PSAs. When we were growing up, pollution was a problem.
Oh, yeah.
The water because the guy polluted. And Woodsy Owl gave a hoot. Well, that doesn't mean it's not here, but it means it's out of the public consciousness because the stories aren't being shown of that.
Right.
So it is that thing of like going, that's what you can do. That's a possibility because I've seen it.
Right.
And also like people, and they're not supposed to, movies are America's mythology.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because we don't have a mythology. So TV and movies are our mythology. And that doesn't mean that everybody has to act perfectly or be true to whatever, because Beaver's growing up, you know what I mean, was my growing up, except my dad had 20 different jobs. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah.
But that was my truth.
Right.
That doesn't make it right or wrong, but that's a truth that you're presenting. You know what I mean? Right. And Roseanne was the first time I ever saw a house that looked like mine.
Yeah.
And Family Ties was the first time I saw somebody eat ice cream out of a container.
Huh.
You know what I mean? And not being served in a bowl. Like we ate it's those kind of little things that also make you feel you're connected with the world.
Right. Well, I remember a story about Roseanne, speaking of Roseanne, when the show started. And she held up the show at one point because she's like, well, that's not how moms don't, this is not how they operate, right? She was very interested in telling the truth.
And that's why it was because it was so great.
Yeah, it really was. And it was all this truth. It's interesting because I think after All in the Family, once Reagan became president for some reason, everybody on TV got rich.
Yeah, Dynasty happened, and
everybody on TV, everybody got rich, and that was normal. That everybody, right? And so it took until Roseanne for people to be regular people again and have regular jobs and worry about money in a real way. It was several years before between blue collar, regular working people kind of shows.
Right, and it all got swept away, and again became glitz and glamour, and we're going to redo the White House and. I guess there's value in that too. You know what I mean? But not mine.
Right.
There's, it's like.
But here's the interesting thing. If you look at Beaver, my life was not Beaver's life, right? I didn't have Beaver's life on Leave It to Beaver. But I will say, especially when it like first season, there are truths there that are truths.
Yeah.
Right. And they're truths about like the Eddie Haskell character we were talking about, right?
Yeah.
The guy who's one guy in front of the parents and another guy in front of the kids. Oh, that's a real guy. I don't have to be growing up in the suburbs.
Right.
I don't have to be right. I don't have to be white. I don't have to be in 1957. I don't have to be. That's a real truth, you know. And so often when you're getting at a real truth underneath, it doesn't even matter what the surface looks like.
No, it doesn't matter if it's science fiction or it doesn't matter if it's anything. But again, if every story told a truth, their truth, everybody would be better off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It would be just a better place to live.
Yeah.
know? It's like, and there's episodes. Do you remember the episode of Leave It to Beaver where they're selling grit door to door?
Yes.
Whatever.
Yes.
My God, and they're going to get this kick-ass projector.
Right. Yeah.
Oh my God, that kills me every time. And he goes, I picked up that projector for you boys. And it's this kick-ass 16 millimeter Bell and Howell projector. Well, they earned it. They really did a good job. And June goes to hang up his coat and this crappy ass package falls out. And
Right.
it's a shitty little
right.
projector.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Ward went and bought him
Right.
a projector. It was just like, oh.
There were real things in it. You know,
Yeah.
people focus on the fact that the woman wore a dress and pearls when she vacuumed or whatever. And it's like, yeah, okay, that surface is.
Well, it's also people go, oh, Disney just painted a version of his movies where everything's great. Everybody's mom was murdered in a Disney movie. Things happen in every Disney movie. Bambi's mom is shot in front of them.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Like, these are stories too. You know what I mean?
Right.
These aren't the only thing that we're saying is true.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because then you go, no, there's got to be room for everybody's stories, but that doesn't mean that you can't tell different stories, and that doesn't mean that, you know, it isn't about you because it's not you.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know anybody in the Empire. You know what I mean? I don't know Luke Skywalker. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's like, but it's good to see you once. It's good to relate, and also it's any way you can relate to him.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Oh, that guy, it's the same things I like. That TV character's cool. You know what I mean? Oh, that guy's neat. That doesn't matter what they are. You have to go, he's a universal person now. Hopefully.
Right. Yeah. Well, they introduced something, actually, I think in the movies they started bringing it in Star Trek 2, that Kirk, like, reads books. Like, it's like he's not in the future like, no, I'm reading a book, like a regular book. And the fact that he read books was like, oh, he's like us. He's just reading a book, you know.
That's fantastic.
You know, it's a small thing, but it actually grounded it in some strange way. Not everything is, it's like, well, yeah, why wouldn't people still read books in the 20th
Well, it's also
century?
like Tony Soprano having to take out the trash.
Right.
You know, it's like those kind of things is always a very pleasing push button for me, of like people doing normal things, mundane things in a hyper setting.
Yeah, I think that those kinds of little things can be really important into grounding. It's like, oh, I can connect now. I can connect.
Yeah.
And it's something very human, and it doesn't have anything to do with when you are, you know, like, oh, that's from the 30s, or that's from there's stuff in Paper Moon that I go, that's a real thing. Even though it takes place in the 30s, I go, that's a real thing. Kids really do that, or whatever. And speaking of the Andy Griffith Show, I remember there's a story that Ron Howard tells about he was supposed to say something. He's a little kid, you know, on the show, he's a little kid. And he said, I don't think a kid would say it that way. And Andy said, well, how would a little kid say it? And then Ron Howard said it, and he says, okay, we'll say it that way. And I guess Ron Howard was kind of stunned. And he's like, what's the matter? Let's go. And he's like, oh, it's just the first idea you've ever taken of mine. And he's like, well, it's the first idea you've had that was any good. Right. But I think what he was teaching a little Ron Howard was tell the truth. And he felt empowered.
Because also Andy Griffith is one of those people that I've never heard one bad story.
No.
Not one.
Yeah.
And all of Hollywood, never one bad story about Andy Griffith. And also, it's like Barney, you know, Don Knotts calls him, go, hey, because there were no time for sergeants to go.
Right. Yeah. They knew each other.
I'm running a show about shit. Don't you think you need a deputy?
Yeah.
You know what? I do. And in the script, they wanted to make them all hayseed, like, because it was in the Dave Thomas show. I'm the justice of the peace.
Right. Yeah.
Give that funny line to Don. You know what I mean? I don't need that. He'd like make it so he truly was. And there's beautiful shots of him looking at Barney, appreciative of him.
Oh,
being,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like George said, I didn't live in a small town like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I didn't know there was no Otis. There was no town drunk. There was no me. There was no goober. You know what I mean? But that didn't mean it was about a human. I knew a guy who had certain traits of this guy and certain traits of that guy. And you wanted to be Andy because he tried to be good.
Yeah.
He did. But again, he made mistakes. He yelled at, you know what I mean? Remember Mr. Chiggins or whatever, the fake telephone guy with the.
Oh, no, it was Mr. McBeevy.
Mr. McBeevy. Yeah.
Mr. McBeevy. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. He didn't believe Opie. Yeah. It was really interesting because he came around and said, without proof, and said, I know I've asked you to believe a lot of things that seemed like they were unbelievable. And I have to believe you. Like, it's a really great thing.
And he's so happy when he meets Mr. McBeevy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And
Yeah. There's also,
it's just truth.
Yeah. There's also one where Opie runs the race. Do you remember that? And he loses. He runs a race and he wants this medal. And he loses. And he's just awful about losing. And Andy's talking to him and he's like, look, Opie, you got to learn how to be a good loser. He's like, I already know how to do that. He goes, no, you don't know how to do that. He goes, you're going to have to learn how to take disappointment. There's a lot more coming up, right? You're going to have to learn how to do that. And it was a really interesting thing in the lesson of, first of all, if you want that, you got to work at it. You just can't get it because you want it. Right. But that reaction, that kid reaction is a true reaction. I wanted a thing and I didn't get it. But their interaction was so real. Opie wasn't the perfect kid, right? You know, he was a great kid, but he wasn't a perfect kid. He was a kid.
Because he's human. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's also, I think that's what people too expect. Like, even like Apple stock goes like this. You know what I mean?
Right.
Nothing goes like this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Even Tesla went down $30 or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
It's like this is just as valid as this.
Yeah.
This is a lot easier. But something I read the other day about some guy's quote was, something like, well, how you become successful? Well, by doing successful things and wisdom. Where do you get the wisdom? From failing.
Right. Yeah.
You have to fail. Babe Ruth struck out more than anybody.
Right.
You know what I mean? You to become a thing, you have to, if you don't fail, you're not trying.
Right.
You don't make any mistakes, then you're not really doing anything new. You're not you're following what people say. And it's like, we got that. You have to expect, and you'd rather have the audience not get it.
Right.
Than people go, like tiny laughs. You'd rather have it die completely. At least you tried and you missed.
Right.
Because the only time when you go, oh, this one's going to kill, you go, oh, this one, I don't know if they're going to like it or not. Because, you know what I mean? Those are the things.
The glory is in the risk, right?
Yeah.
Those are the big wins. When you've risked a lot, those are the bigger wins.
Yeah.
Right? There's a story that Art Tatum, the jazz musician, told about Tommy Dorsey. And they were asking him, I think it's in Ken Burns' jazz documentary. And they're not Art Tatum. They're talking to, not Art Tatum. Who are they talking? It doesn't matter. Whoever they're talking to. Artie Shaw. That's who they're talking to. Artie Shaw. And Artie Shaw says about Tommy Dorsey's band, he goes, he had a good band. He goes, but I never heard them make any mistakes. And what he was saying is they didn't try that hard.
Right.
They didn't try hard enough to make mistakes. They didn't reach very far. They were safe. Yeah, it was fine. It was a fine band. They didn't make any. I heard other musicians say that too about people. I think there was a musician, I think it was Thelonious Monk, was talking to Abby Lincoln. She was singing. And he said, yeah, you can sing fine, but I never hear you make any mistakes. Seeing that as a virtue, making mistakes is a virtue. We don't really live in a culture like that.
Which is sad. You know what I mean? Because that's what everything is making mistakes. Again, or you're not. But it's like they want. The system wants you to be the same and not rock any boats. You know what I mean? And I don't know who's putting it. When I was younger, I used to believe in the man or whatever. But it's like, that's what is, and I think society must want that too, of like people's sameness. Because we make fun of things that are different. You know what I mean? You get rid of things that are different. You mock the guy when he's walking, like the Gorilla Kids. But you can't make it so that you believe that. Right. You know what I mean? You got to go, I want to say this thing. And it's like, you watch all this stuff of like, and you have to know that you live in a cycle of history.
Right.
Like somebody has to defend Harvey Weinstein in court. Why? Because that's the American system.
Right.
Everybody deserves, people defended Russian spies.
Right.
They defended, John Adams defended the people who shot people in the Boston Massacre. Everybody deserves a defense and find them guilty or innocent. We can't throw away everything because then we become them. Right. Which is, again, it's been shown a million times. If I could knock down all the trees in England to find the debt, well, then who would stop the wind?
Right.
You can't destroy everything. That's why the Miranda rights are there. That's why things are there. There's systems where you've got to go, we follow rules because why? Because we are civilized people and we want to keep our anger in check.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like people go, wow, New York City's rough. And when you go to Europe, especially, you go like, well, I'm just amazed it's not rougher. Right. I'm amazed that people can get along so well that you rarely see fights anymore on the street. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like different because it's COVID time. But it's like there's a lot of shitty things. Again, you go, the reason that we are also so guilty of stuff is because we said we were better than everybody else.
Right.
You know what I mean? We said we are taking your systems and we are putting in an ideal. And when we don't live up to that ideal, it makes you sad. But that doesn't, in my opinion, diminish the ideal.
Right.
Eisenhower said, you can live 100 years in France and never be a Frenchman.
Right.
You live one day in America, you can become a citizen.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like you are a citizen. And that's what's so great about why dads all our age love World War II, because it was clean. And the path of people they drafted was everybody.
Right.
It wasn't Vietnam. It wasn't the Civil War. Nobody got paid to get out. No one had one unit. 7 people who could translate Hebrew to English to Italian to German. You had 50 musicians. You had tax accountants. You had because you took a swath of America.
Right. And
you said, you people are now our citizen soldiers are going to go fight this war against these bad people. Right. That doesn't mean we're perfect.
Right.
But it means that there's an ideal that we should not stop trying to achieve. Do you know what I mean? So that's why the thing, like throwing it all out and going like, these people were all evil. These people are all, yes, these people did horrible things, but you got to go, let's fix that.
Right. Yeah.
By demonizing people, it doesn't make it better. Like all of this stuff, like putting a black square on Instagram. What good did that do? You know what I mean? It's like, make people aware and talk about again, it's the same storytelling. What story are you telling?
Right.
You have to make it so people go, oh, wow. That would be a drag.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's what happened for when you saw that tape and you went, I don't want to live in a country that does this.
Right.
I want to make my country better. I want to live in a place where that doesn't happen.
Right.
And then, like we were talking about, suddenly your world eyes open up because your bubble is popped. Mm-hmm. And you go, oh my God, I never realized how bad it was. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize how bad it was for you and you and you, because I lived in water and I didn't see it.
Right.
Because I lived in a glorious world of whiteness and maleness. So none of that stuff touched me. But that doesn't mean I can't empathize with it.
Right.
And can't try to make it better. I'm not saying, I'm not going to take the forefront and go, hey, I know better than you.
Right.
You know what I mean? I got this. Well, I got this little man. You know what I mean? But it's like you go, no, I want to be. Again, it's the kindness. It all boils down to kindness, and kindness is empathy, and kindness is forgiveness, and kindness is, I wouldn't want to be treated like that. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think, and I do believe no one is free till everyone is free. Mm-hmm. I really believe that in my heart, and it's like that's just a truism that you were taught when you were a kid. When you. You know what I mean? Like, that guy's not there, but for the grace of God, go you.
Right.
I never liked making fun of headshots that people would send in, those because that's you, that's me,
Right.
that's all of us, that's everyone.
Right.
And you being here is not a matter that he's better than you or you're better than him. You're lucky to have come to this place.
Right.
You know, yes, you have skills. Yes, you have this. Yes, you have that. But I know funnier people than me sitting on their couches in Des Moines. You know what I mean? There's a lot. You have to just go, wow, I got to share my blessing and try to make people through kindness and act of good deeds and things like that. And just being a light in the world as opposed to a darkness, you know what I mean? Which isn't comedy, but it is comedy. You know?
Of course it is. I
Yeah.
mean, I think Chaplin was a really good example of that, right, in his comedy. Chaplin grew up very poor. His mom in and out of institution, himself and his brother in the workhouse, you know, all the time, which was awful.
Yeah, which was pretty much Dickens' workhouse.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
In those circumstances, and connected with regular people, empathized with regular people, even when he was a multimillionaire.
Yeah.
He knew that about himself, and he knew that those people have dignity. It's actually one of the things about him playing a drunk, as they used to call people who were alcoholics. You don't really call them a drunk anymore.
Arthur was the last time you could laugh at a joke.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Arthur too went, no.
I can't laugh at a drunk anymore.
Foster Brooks is not. Again, Foster Brooks is funny. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, Foster Brooks. That's yeah. I don't know if people would find him funny like now.
I know, but to us,
yes. Yeah.
because we didn't know any better.
Yeah. Foster Brooks, for people who don't know, just played a guy who was drunk. Oh, that's what he did. That was his comedy. Right? like that's what he did.
That was it.
He didn't do anything else.
No,
Did he? Was he in a movie? Is he? No.
I only saw him on Dean Martin Road.
That's the only place I saw him too. And he was always drunk. That was his thing.
The shtick,
Yeah. But I keep forgetting what I'm saying.
Oh, Chaplin being a drunk.
Oh, yeah. Chaplin's key was that he said when people are drunk, they always try to maintain their dignity. So he said that he was always brushing himself and straightening his. He's like, that's the truth of being drunk, right? Anybody who plays a drunk well will say drunks are trying very hard not to be drunk.
And also, it is that thing of it's whenever you have a crushing thing on you, whether it be drunk or you're high or, you know what I mean, something that affects you, or you're poor or you're downtrodden or the only thing you have is your dignity.
Right.
You know what I mean? The only thing that you can go, I'm still around here and doing this, is your dignity. And it's like, that's why, again, your humor can take people down or it can lift people up.
Right.
And you have a choice.
And I think that what Chaplin always did, and when you read about what he said about comedy too, he basically said, you don't punch down, you don't, right. But he always tried to give people their dignity in his work. Like, it didn't matter how poor they were. It didn't matter. He always tried to give them their humanity and their dignity. And that's what he was saying, right? These people deserve to be respected just because they're people.
What year did he shoot The Great Dictator?
It was before we were in the war.
Yeah. So it was like he saw this and went, oh, this guy's bad. And also, though, I think the main reason he hated him so much, he stole his mustache. Yeah. And he went, I'm sure thought that was the reason, but I'm sure in my heart that he went, that motherfucker took my fucking mustache and he he's doing this and this and this.
Yeah. Oh, no. That's my thing.
He took my he stole my bit. Went after hardcore.
But I think that, he was the first guy to take him down comedically. Yeah.
Who cares about this?
Yeah. He was the first guy to take him down.
And is that the first time he speaks in movies?
Yeah, it might be, because he gets to speak in that movie.
City Lights is like in the 30s, right?
Yeah, and he's still, there's no...
making silent movies and they're still smash hits.
Yeah.
God bless.
That's true. Yeah, I think it's early. If they're 31 or 30.
Yeah, but it's in the when
sound. Yeah,
fully there.
Yeah. But he didn't want to. He has a great essay I have where he talks about how talkies won't last, and it's actually
it makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And in fact, Mary Pickford said something really interesting about talkies. She says, if you look at the history of art, it generally gets more refined. It starts complicated and gets more refined. She said it would have made a lot more sense if we had started with talkies and gone to silence.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing that people forget now too, is that it is primarily a visual medium.
Oh yeah. People forget that all the time.
They forget that all the time. You're like, no, you don't need to say that. You can show it. It's much better. It means something more to people because they see what you're doing, as opposed to that guy was kind to that child the other day. Doesn't mean as much.
You can't get left alone anymore.
No, I know. And that's where it's like, also, who's going to sit in their room for hours and be Eddie Van Halen and practice the guitar or practice magic tricks when, you know what I mean? But maybe I do believe things are going back to tactile. I think people do want handmade, touchable things.
Yeah.
As opposed to everything being.
I think that's probably true. I hope so too. But it's interesting. I was talking to somebody. It's like, you used to call. I was telling my niece, I'm like, you used to call people, and if they weren't home, that was it. Like the phone would ring and ring and ring, right? Or if they were on the phone,
how long you let it ring before you hung up too. You know what I mean? You let it ring a long time.
Oh yeah, you did. Oh yeah. So like 15, 20 times. You go, okay, apparently they're not home or whatever. And that was that.
How about this? Even this, like, so you kids, you would just meet people? Yeah, you'd go, I'm going to meet you at this bar at 7:00, and they'd be like a half hour later. You just wait around for them. They didn't text you, which again now sounds so foreign.
Right.
You're over at your phone for 2 seconds. That's why I got to put this down, and like, I have to get in the habit of going, like, I'm just setting it down. In 2 hours, I'm going to set down this phone. I'm just going to work, and then I'll see it when I'm back, because it's just a time suck.
Yeah, it is. It's weird. All these devices they told us when we were young were going to be time-saving devices,
and we're going to be a paperless society.
Right? Yeah. There's more paper and there's less time, because now you can work 24 hours a day essentially.
No, because you always have to be. If you don't hear from somebody, you think they're sick or you did something wrong.
Right. It's true. Yeah. Well, I think part of thinking that you did something wrong is being an imaginative person. I have a friend. If I text him or write him or call him and if it doesn't right away get back to me, I'm like, what did I do? I pissed him off. I
think also it's the brokenness of show business.
Right. Yeah.
Something's broken in you that you need to. People have to applaud when you show up to work.
Right.
So to realize that you're not. You think, I'm the only person who doesn't have an ego. I'm the only person who's perfect. So, everybody. Why would you want to be in a job that was so much rejection? You know what I mean? Why?
Yeah.
I have 0 chance, 0.000% chance of even making enough to eat. Where do I sign? I'll be turned down at every turn and told I'm no good at every stop.
Yeah. It's a harder business than people. I think if people really knew, they wouldn't do it. I think that's unless they had to do it, which is
that's also another crazy thing.
Yeah, sometimes you have to do it.
Yeah. And especially like performers, they have to get up and perform or they go crazy.
Yeah, there's a story. You may know this story about a dancer. She's in a dance class. She's a kid, and her dance teacher pulls her aside and said, "You're never going to be a dancer. You don't have it, and you should find something else to do." And so the girl does. She finds something else to do. She does it, and she runs into her teacher somewhere. As an adult, she runs into her teacher and she goes, "How did you know I would never be a dancer?" And the teacher says, "Because when I told you, you believed me." Right. That's true. Like if somebody has to do something, you cannot stop them. You can't stop them.
You either find a way or you find an excuse.
Right. Yeah.
Those are the only two paths you take.
Yeah, that's true.
And sometimes you go, you know what? I don't want it that bad.
Yeah.
Like stand up. I did stand up a few times. I go, this is not for me. I don't have that thing in me
that makes you have to do it.
I want to be on stage in front of people alone and tell them jokes. It just there's something about being with people is more safe and more fun. Then if you die, you don't care.
Right. Yeah.
You're good. Then you're making this guy laugh.
Right.
You know what I mean? If they're not enjoying, you're making the comics in the back of the room laugh.
Yeah.
It's not as scary.
Yeah. I remember almost everybody at the ranch seemed to play the guitar.
Yeah.
I did not. And I remember people trying to teach me how to play the guitar. And I remember after doing it a few times, I was like, I'm like, oh, my fingers hurt. They go, well, you'll get calluses. And that'll like, oh, that, and I can't make my finger do that. And they're like, well, after a while, you'll be able to. And I realized, oh, I don't want to learn how to play the guitar. I want to know how to play the guitar, which is different.
Yeah. I know Kung Fu. You want to be Matrix so you can play the guitar instantly.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You don't want to go through the process.
Right. And so I always tell people about this particular craft. I say, well, you have to love it enough to be bad at it.
Yeah, that's true.
That is true. It's like nobody's instantly good. You know, people have said to me, well, you have a gift for it. I'm like, you don't know how many hours I spent doing it. It's all hours. It's just hours. It's like having a gift for six-pack abs. It's like, no, it's all hours. It's just reps. Yeah. That's all it is.
And that's the only thing you can teach because you can't teach the other stuff.
No.
You can only teach, here's the things you should do to streamline your chance of success.
Yeah.
Which is hard work, setting up a schedule, doing it, working harder than anybody else at it, being serious, sticking to your time. You know what I mean? Just knowing that's what you do and then having fun doing other things so you have something to talk about.
Yeah.
Because what else says, all that happens is, what's this movie about? It's a writer who has writer's block. Well, I don't want to hear about that.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. You're not working hard enough. You know, that's, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. What should this film be about? Filmmakers making it like everybody
like
does that.
Dana pointed out about the first Star Wars remake, that everything was meetings because that was George Lucas's life then. He's running stuff with the meeting of the Jedi Council, meeting of the other people, meeting of the meeting of the Senate. There's just all it was is a series of meetings strung together to make a movie.
Yeah, well, that was his life. You're right.
Right? No, you know what I mean? And you don't realize that you're in it because I am what is water. You are in it. You don't realize you're in it until the Amazing Grace sets up and you go, oh shit, I didn't know that was the case.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you have to forgive yourself for not knowing.
Right. Yeah.
Because how could you know? You know what I mean? You just got to go, oh no, now. And it's like, I read about this dude. I told you that story that I read, that guy who presented slavery to, it was Witherstone. His name was something like that. To the British Parliament. And because they were saying, no, it's better for these people. They were actually saying that this
people used to say
we took them away from this horrible life they had and we give them religion and better.
Yeah, they didn't have Christianity. Yeah.
And so this dude was just hanging out and he talked to the dude who wrote Amazing Grace.
Oh, yeah.
And he had
John Newton.
Yeah, John Newton.
Yeah.
This guy, I never heard of this other guy. We should find out his name.
Okay.
But so he goes to, I think it was William Pitt. I can't remember. It's the younger or the elder. And he goes, I have to do this. I have to find out because this is evil. I know it might ruin my position and take down your government. And he goes, well, then you have to do it. If it's in your heart, you have to do it.
Yeah.
And so he did all of this stuff and presented to Parliament this 6-hour mind-blowing thing.
Wow.
And at the end, he said, you may not choose to do anything about this, but from now on, you cannot say you did not know.
Huh.
You know what I mean? It was like, that was like one. Why do I not know about? Why am I only hearing about this now?
Right.
And it's that the thing of, and also it's the heroes of the story are also the Newton guy who helped him and William Pitt going, you can do that.
Right.
He's a valid player too. And people don't realize that, like everybody's going like, people don't realize how hard it is to leave your people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How hard it is for it. I was raised a yellow dog Democrat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So how hard it would be for me to switch parties.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And then these people switch parties to help them, and they go, "Why were you with us in the beginning?" Well, just shut up, you dumb shit.
Right. Yeah.
They're helping you now. Take
Yeah.
their help and be thankful. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's those kind of things of people putting these giant moral imperatives on people that you should have been, you should have known from the beginning that this was wrong. Well,
Right.
I guess you're Christ. I'm just a human.
Right.
And you're right. I shouldn't have. Now you should deride me for coming to see the light at this
Right.
late date because I wasn't smart like you. So, you know what I mean? It's like so foolish.
Yeah.
It's, don't turn away allies. Don't turn away people who are going to help you because they were wrong in the past. And I understand if you're fake atoning, like
Right, sure.
or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey, but now Obama's a president. Was sad I did all this stuff.
Yeah.
Right back in. It's like, oh, I see.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like people again, that's kindness and forgiveness and
Right.
you know what I mean? And
Well, there's this idea of being hard on institutions and soft on people.
right.
Right? Like, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, and then the soft people can change the hard institution.
Right.
You know what I mean? Again, if you throw them out and then you don't forgive and you don't know how are they supposed to know? They're raised in this awful world
Mm-hmm.
where fear and hate and whatever, which they think is great and real.
Right.
Well, how can they be you know what I mean? That's like,
yeah. Well, it's an interesting thing when you talk about, for instance, if you look at any of the pictures of these spectacle lynchings, people used to bring their kids.
yeah,
And the reason they brought their kids was to desensitize them to the idea that these deaths matter, right? That was the whole point, right? So,
when again, not to say that's not reprehensible.
it is reprehensible.
Yeah, but no, I'm saying, no, I'm not to say that that's not reprehensible.
Right, yes.
Awful, but you got to go. You have to go. What you have to understand is what made them think that was okay.
Right.
That's the thing you have to change. Like you said,
the thing that made them think it was okay was that they went to lynchings when they were kids. Right. That was. I actually read an account. There's all these slave narratives that they collected. The Library of Congress was like, hey, there's still slaves alive. Like I think in the 20s they started doing this. And so they went and interviewed a bunch of slaves. They sent a bunch of writers up and they interviewed all these slaves. So these narratives exist in the Library of Congress and there's books about it and stuff, these interviews. And I remember one woman who was a slave talking about how she didn't address a little kid, a white little kid, in the proper manner. She treated the kid like a kid. And so she had to be punished. So she was whipped. But it was the kid that was made to whip her. And the kid had to whip her, and the kid didn't want to.
right.
And the kid, had to do it until he drew blood. Because that was teaching the institution of slavery, teaching both people their positions.
Exactly. Because you always hear about that in the thing of like the only thing slavery is, the only people that are treated worse, the people who are treated worse by slavery are the blacks, and the second people are the whites, because you ruin these people because you're going like, it's like you're in the concentration camps. You are the guard.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're going like, and you have to, I think, understand what they're, like you're saying, they're brought up in this system. That doesn't mean they can't go, this system is awful.
Oh, sure.
And I'm free of it. We liberals live in a gray world.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Conservatives live in a black and white world. Things are right or wrong. You're with me or against me.
Right.
And we're like going like, oh man, but wait. That's why those Lincoln ads, the Lincoln.
Oh yeah.
The
Lincoln.
Yeah. Because they're not nuanced. They're like pow, pow, pow.
Right.
Because like, what was George Bush talking about? It's written behind him.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, but we're like, we have to talk to everybody, and we have to make sure that this point is nuanced and finely put. And like, no, just hit them. Just go up and say it, and just pow.
Yeah.
Tell them what you said. Say what you said. Tell them what is it. Tell them what you're going to say.
Yeah.
And then tell them what you told them.
Yeah.
But we're like all like about, like defund the police to me is just a dumb phrase.
Right.
It should be reallocate the fund.
Right.
Oh, why would you say that when people have to go, well, that's not what that means, actually. Why would you call it defund the police? Defund the police means zero money for any police forces anywhere. No, not quite. Well, no, that's what it means. I don't think and they're like, somebody was thinking of some 5% tax. And then instead of calling it the billionaire tax, they called it the 5% tax. And you go like, don't call it the 5%.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like we're so nuanced and gray about stuff that we have to get a little more. There are right and wrong.
Right.
There is empirical right, and there's 2 and 2 equals 4.
Right.
And I do think August Wilson, if he was alive now, would have different opinions about the Confederate flag, because at that point in time, it was a relic of history.
Yes, that's
now
true.
It's living.
Now it's yes.
We're fighting it again. It's like, are you kidding me?
No. Well, I have
Nazis and Confederates again.
I have a theory about the Civil War that I've had for years.
Which was uncivil. You always say that.
Yes, but I also say it was a ceasefire. That it was not. It's like Korea. It's like North and South Korea.
It's like World War I.
Yeah, it's a ceasefire.
Ceasefire for 20 years.
Yeah, and that every now and then it flares up. Like whenever there's. Right. Every now and then you got to have the National Guard come and help kids go to school, or every now and then, like, it's a ceasefire. And I think that war is still happening.
Yeah, I do. And I hope that, knock wood, that we can find, again, like the guy, I don't know who said it first, but my favorite Confederate flag was their last one. The flag of surrender.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And you should be punished because you were a traitor.
Yeah.
And also all of that stuff of, like, we've talked about this before too. If there's a statue, if there's a plaque in West Point that said, Robert E. Lee taught here and came up with the theory of blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To me, that's okay.
Right.
They put up at the time that Robert E. Lee was at the head of West Point, and they did it. That's okay with me. But if you put that up in 1920, a big statue of him to say to people, we didn't lose this war, you're still. Then I have a problem with it.
Right.
You know what I mean? If there's a problem, if the Lincoln, if the Washington or the Jefferson Memorial, said he owned 50 slaves, and the memorial was 4, then I go, well, no, I don't.
Right. Yeah.
George Washington owned more slaves than anybody. Well,
Right.
Then tear that statue down.
Right.
I mean, again, the mythology of perfection of, it's like, it's always awful, but people don't see what they're living in. Do you know what I mean? And if you see it, and like the guy said, now that you know, you can never say you didn't know.
Right.
Then at that point, you move on. You know what I mean? Then you go, okay, you're just fucked up. You are an evil person because, it's like people go, it's like we just took slavery and exported it to foreign countries so kids make our tennis shoes. Right. That's okay, so that we don't have to pay a union guy money.
Right.
Or lady, for Igloo or whatever. We don't want to pay people a living wage so that they can make, because if they get $600 a week, they might not want to go back to work. Well, if you can live on $600 a week in New York City, God bless you. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's enough. And then these guys are making, Jeff Bezos just made $13 billion today.
Don't get me started.
You just go there. It's like if you smush the middle class, so there's no, and then it's like you just go, what are you doing? You can't, even Henry Ford, the racist, bigoted Henry Ford wanted his people to make a living wage. I don't get it.
Yeah. Hey, we've talked probably longer than we were supposed to, but I always enjoy talking to you.
Always enjoy talking to you, my friend.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to leave on?
I do. The thing that helped me the most that I wish I would have had when I was starting out was that War of Art book by Stephen Pressfield, because it really would have made my life a lot easier. It's got all the precepts that I think will help you navigate yourself in a world that has no rules.
Mm-hmm.
because no one's going to tell you to write that thing. It's not like school. There's no, when you get paid to write stuff, it's like, hey man, if you could do, it's like kids will say something. Hey man, I don't like doing this. That's why it's hard. I can work hard on something I love. Everybody can work hard on something they love. You got to learn how to work hard on something you don't love. And that's what it is. It's turning it into a craft and using muscle memory. And you can't run a marathon tomorrow.
Right.
You can't just decide, I'm going to run a marathon. And it's the same with creating. You can't just, you have to develop the muscles. You have to put the time in a way that doesn't cripple you. Like it crippled me. I couldn't do anything but think about work. And then that would make me not be able to write or not be able to think about funny stuff. Because I was, so you work a finite period a day and that period can grow each day. So start simple and just do it, close it, live, come back. You'll have more to write about and you'll live a better and happier life.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Thank you so much, Steve. I really appreciate it. All right.
I will talk to you.
All right.
Good luck. God bless.
Man.
Stay safe.
Thanks for watching You Are a Storyteller, part of the Co-Loop Podcast Network. If you have any questions or if there's a topic you'd like us to cover, leave a comment below or email us at hello@beliefagency.com.